The story began when the classroom was full of energy as classmates chatted about ice cream, the beach, and the pool, their voices stacking over each other while asking about plans for the break. By the desk, one boy leaned closer with a teasing smile, asking if there were any plans. Another stayed seated quietly with a book, replying in a calm tone, probably just studying. Surprise hit the first boy, moving in closer like, "Wait, are you for real?" With a steady expression and a hand raised like making a quiet promise, the reply came clear and firm. "Do you really think I'd lie to my best friend?" Haruto stayed silent as his friend leaned back against the desk, reminding him it was already their second year of high school, and sometimes you need to chill and actually enjoy being young. The words carried excitement, throwing out ideas like going to the beach or the pool with the girls from class. Not far away, a group of girls talked happily, their laughter mixing in as they said things like, "That sounds fun, and it's right here in town." Haruto's eyes shifted, his face calm, but a little distant, while his friend's grin stayed full of hype. And the thought of summer fun slowly started to spark something inside him. A quiet sigh slipped out as the boy leaned back, saying if they wanted to invite Tojo, then he'd have to go do it himself. His friend reacted instantly, jumping up with a raised hand in protest, calling it harsh, while the other turned slightly with a relaxed gesture, asking if a best friend would really be left behind that easily. Nearby, the girls by the window kept chatting, their laughter light and easy. Then from that group, a girl with a gentle smile lifted her hand to greet, her presence immediately standing out as the name Ayaka Tojo was heard clearly. Her hair glowed like flax under the sunlight, moving softly as petals seemed to drift around her. Her beauty was striking enough to make people question if she was some kind of celebrity or idol. With long, slim legs and balanced proportions, she walked with a smooth elegance that naturally caught attention. Smiling softly among her classmates, her presence carried a bright charm, making it obvious she was basically the school's idol. Tomoya leaned in closer with a grin, telling Haru to be the one to invite Tojo-san, while Haru frowned and said, if things went bad, Tomoya should handle the rejection himself. Annoyance sparked as Tomoya fired back, saying, "Don't just assume I'll get rejected." And laughter broke out as Tomoya kept insisting he had a shot, but Haru remained composed, pointing out his top grades in the year. Even so, Haru let out a sigh, quietly saying, "No chance." While nearby girls whispered about Tojo saying, mentioning she might not even be into guys, leaving that idea hanging with a mix of surprise and uncertainty. The room filled with laughter again as plans for the break were talked about, and someone admitted there was actually something besides studying to look forward to. Interest grew as the question came up, asking if he was planning to hang out after all. Instead, the answer revealed a short-term part-time job, making everyone more curious about what kind of work it was. With a calm look, he lifted his phone, the screen glowing clearly, and with a small, confident smile, showed a housekeeping service job displayed on it. The house felt still as the boy came back, calling out in a bright voice that he was home. Warm air stuck to him as he loosened his tie, fanning himself while stepping inside. From the hallway, his grandmother appeared, greeting him kindly with a soft smile. After returning from shopping, he talked about how crowded the supermarket was, bringing up things like the price of ground meat and onions. She listened with care while he smiled and suggested having Hamburg steak for dinner, saying it was the best choice. With determination, he said he would help. But before anything else, he walked toward the family altar. Standing in front of the framed photos, he gently greeted them. "Grandpa, Dad, Mom," sang Clear's throat, once again in a quiet voice that he was home. His past held deep weight, losing his parents in an unexpected accident and being raised by his grandparents after that. His grandpa brought him to a karate dojo, helping him build strength and discipline, but passed away before he even entered middle school. Now only his grandma was left beside him, sharing each day together. With firm resolve, he said this summer would be spent working a part-time job, promising not to ignore his studies and making sure he would still keep going to the dojo. Kneeling down with a calm smile, he finished with a soft, "All right." holding both gratitude and quiet strength in that moment. His grandma stood by the sink, teaching him house chores and cooking, passing down in skills that made him more capable than most at home. With a cheerful smile, he walked in, scratching his cheek, easing her concern by saying nothing was wrong, just really looking forward to the hamburgers. Happiness showed clearly on his face as laughter filled the room. And soon after he placed a hand on his stomach, already thinking about how good the meal would taste. After enjoying Grandma's hamburger steak, he leaned back with a grin, saying it was amazing. A sudden call from Akiji Toya lit up his phone, pulling him from his calm mood. Hearing it was just to hear Haru. He called it creepy and almost hung up, but the voice rushed to say it was a joke, claiming there was something real to talk about, leaving him listening with sharp curiosity. In front of the entire schoolyard, Kite Senpai from the tennis club made his move, his voice echoing through the broadcast. With all eyes on him, he dropped to one knee, holding out a ring and asking, "Will you marry me?" The crowd froze, stunned by the bold and fearless confession. She turned him down with a single line, leaving the boy smirking as if it was expected. Tojo, the school idol, faced countless confessions from handsome guys inside and outside the school. She walked away with quiet grace, leaving hearts broken in her shadow. Different tactics came her way again and again, but not one ever earned a good answer. He gripped the phone tight, annoyed by the teasing voice that claimed rejection was certain. While Tojuin's name floated around as nothing more than talk among friends, she passed by with quiet elegance, untouchable, someone who would never become anything more. That was the belief at the start of summer break until a part-time job at a housekeeping service slowly began to change everything. On the third day of summer break, he stood before a grand house, nerves running through him as he stepped closer, a small smile breaking through. His first job was for a celebrity client, and the weight of that thought made the moment feel larger, thrilling, and unforgettable. He studied himself at the mansion gate, pulling his shirt with a quiet breath, wondering what kind of people lived in such a place, then pressed the bell. A voice answered, and he quickly introduced himself as being from the housekeeping service. Hearing it was a young woman's voice made his heart race even more, and as she replied to wait a moment while the door opened, nerves and anticipation filled the air around him. The door opened and a young woman stood there, making his chest tighten as the thought raced, "She's here," then bowed deeply, thanking her for using the housekeeping service with quiet determination. He straightened with a calm smile, introducing himself as Itsuki and saying he would be in charge today. The door opened and she appeared, standing tall with a calm gaze, one hand holding the frame as silence filled the air, her presence alone carrying a quiet weight that made the moment feel sharp and unforgettable. She froze at the door, eyes wide as recognition struck. Softly saying Tojo sang the air heavy with surprise until she gathered herself, a small smile forming as she admitted the truth. He was in the same class. Itsuki Kon. Itsuki stared back, just as confused, asking why. He watched, thinking it must be hard for Tojo since always approached by so many people. A quiet pause slipped out as the thought sank in. Then she stood by the door, admitting a woman was expected instead. He scratched his head with a small laugh, saying a female staff could have been requested. He offered to let someone else take over if it was a problem, adding that a change might take some time. She leaned against the door in quiet thought, while he adjusted his bag and asked with calm resolve, "What would you like to do?" She stood by the door, her voice steady as she said it was fine as is, and asked to go ahead with the housekeeping service. His eyes widened in surprise, questioning if not changing was really okay. Yet relief followed when she called out Suki Coin, her gaze firm as she asked if the visit was because of her. With a calm breath, he answered, "Of course not." She gestured softly, telling that it was fine and to come on in. Huge, just as expected of a mansion. Ayaka stood with a graceful presence, pointing the way as she said, "The kitchen is this way." With steady steps and a polite, Haruto moved forward beside her into the grand corridor. Hiro walked behind Ayaka through the mansion's long hall, surprised that the first job turned out to be at Toyo's. Each step felt more unexpected. A thought lingered if she was still wary and if being the one in charge was truly okay. the quiet air making the moment heavy yet strangely exciting. Ayaka guided the way with a steady voice, revealing the living room and the kitchen beyond. Haruto entered and froze in awe, the bright and polished space unfolding before him. His gaze locked on its sheer size. The thought echoed clear. This living room was massive, at least 3 times larger, and the only word left was amazement. Ayaka called out his name with curiosity, and Haruto straightened in surprise, quickly presenting himself with a bow. His words firm as he introduced Atsuki and declared being in charge today. A business card slipped into her hand, sparking her wonder. She noted even a card was ready. While he explained the request received, a 3-hour course for cleaning the kitchen and preparing dinner. Her nod confirmed it, and the answer came clear that was correct. Ayaka glanced aside, admitting it felt strange being called Sama when both were classmates. Yet Haruto kept a calm smile, reminding himself that Tojo-sama was an important customer and must be treated strictly as a client, so she felt comfortable. With steady composure, he announced the service would begin, asking if there was anything specific to request. Ayaka paused, fingers lightly against her lips, thinking for a moment before answering it was more of a request, her eyes lifting with a gentle seriousness as she asked to take a look at the kitchen first. Ayaka stood before the messy sink, asking if it was okay to clean even when it was in this state, her voice carrying a hint of worry. But as Haruto glanced at the chaotic scene, a quiet thought slipped through. Could it be that Tojo is actually clumsy? Haruto answered with a calm smile, saying, "No problem," and promising to make everything spotless. Her expression softened, gratitude shining as she said, "Thank." Ayaka offered to clean the living room, unsure if it was too much to ask, but Haruto smiled gently and said it was his job after all. She looked at him curiously, asking really, and he answered with calm confidence, while Ayaka placed her hands together, softly, saying she would leave the living room to him as well. With a small nod, he said understood, then pointed to the stairs while explaining her room was right up and to the left, reminding to knock if anything was needed, and even handing over the vacuum to use freely. Ayaka bowed politely, asking to take care of everything. Haruto replied with a calm, "Got it," a small smile resting on his face as she disappeared upstairs. Left standing in the quiet hallway, he clenched his jaw slightly, steadying himself for the task ahead. Haruto stepped back with a sigh, muttering that it was nerve-wracking, his mind racing with thoughts about why Tajun was requesting housekeeping services, knowing she was a rich young lady, but still uncertain. Then his gaze shifted and froze as it became the first time seeing her up close. Too cute to ignore, her casual clothes, making Tojo-san look simply amazing. Her thoughts spun as he noticed that Tojo was surprisingly different, her presence lingering in his mind. Yet he quickly shook his head, repeating nope over and over, reminding himself that she was an important first customer, tightening his grip on his sleeve to steady himself. Then with a sharp breath and clenched fist, he declared with determination to focus on doing the job. Ayaka closed the door to her room, whispering that she was surprised, never expecting Itsuki-kin to be the one to come. Her breath soft as she let the thought slip out, her eyes glimmering with unspoken feelings, wondering if Itsuki cueing from the same class might actually be a good match. Silence filling the space as her gaze turned gentle yet uncertain, leaving the thought of an unexpected start to summer break hanging in the air. 3 days ago, Ayaka clutched her phone with teary eyes, crying out that she couldn't take it anymore and didn't want to go to school. While on the other side, Saki tried to calm her down, calling the stunt of proposing with a ring over the school broadcast totally crazy, saying it wasn't Endo-senpai, but Ko-senpai, and that summer vacation would start tomorrow so everyone would forget. Ayaka lay on her bed staring at the glowing screen, whispering with worry that such a popular senpai would only cause resentment. Lying on her bed with the phone pressed close, she listened as a voice reminded her that getting a boyfriend would help ward off other guys. Yet, she softly muttered, there was no one for that, only to hear Itsuki-kwan's name suggested as a good match. The one with the top score in the grade, her eyes widening as she repeated the name. And when it was said that compared to other boys, he had a calm atmosphere, not pushy with a gentle vibe, she whispered in surprise, wondering if that was so. Her heart stirred by the thought. She recalled words about how having someone to protect in times of trouble would bring peace of mind, brushing it off with a playful protest, still surprised that he would come as a housekeeper, resting her chin on folded arms with a sigh. Yet those thoughts lingered as Itsuki suddenly appeared, leaving her wondering about the choice made after asking him, softly admitting maybe it was something a bit out of character. With a steady smile, Itsuki decided to begin, setting his eyes on the messy kitchen. Surprised to find that Tojo carried a clumsy side within her. Rolling up his sleeves, he worked through the clutter until the place shone again, wiping his brow with relief. With the task complete, he prepared to report back to Tojo, only to pause at the sudden sound of hurried footsteps racing his way. The door swung open, and a cheerful boy dashed in, shouting that he was home, his smile wide with excitement. Itsuki turned in surprise, watching as the boy's energy filled the room. But in a sudden twist, the boy froze, eyes landing on the unfamiliar figure in the apron. Panic lit up his face, and with a sharp cry of thief, he spun and bolted away, leaving Itsuki standing speechless in the hallway, caught between confusion and disbelief. The boy ran in panic, yelling about a thief while Itsuki tried to stop the misunderstanding. Ayaka stepped in with calm surprise, holding her brother's hand as he insisted on danger. Her gaze steady yet tense as the word thief lingered on her lips. Itsuki spoke with a nervous smile, saying sorry and that the kid mistook him for a thief. Ayaka let out a small laugh at the mix-up while the boys stared up in confusion, calling out Wani-chan. Ayaka leaned down gently, explaining this person isn't a thief, then added he's a housekeeper, someone who helps with cleaning and cooking, easing the boy's worry with calm words. Ryota looked serious, asking if it was because the kitchen had been messed up and left unclean. Ayaka knelt down and shook her head, explaining that help had been considered for a while. Ryota's eyes softened as she asked if food had been made for her, while her hand gently rested on his head. She smiled and reminded him about plans with friends. Laughter and warmth filled the moment as Ayaka bent down, asking about the park, and Ryota answered with a simple nod. Itsuki then realized it was the younger brother who caused the mess and quickly apologized for assuming she was clumsy. Ayaka smiled warmly, introducing her younger brother, Ryota, and apologizing for the confusion, explaining that he was still in kindergarten and didn't understand everything yet. Her crouched down, gently addressing Ryota and apologizing for surprising him. Ryota looked up with wide eyes as Ayaka reassured him, saying, "No worries as long as the misunderstanding was cleared." Haruto then straightened, introducing himself with a calm smile as Haruto Itsuki and extended his hand, his words soft. Ayaka's hand reached out, meeting his in a firm shake. Ryota lowered his head, admitting he called Haruto a thief and apologizing with sincerity. Haruto laughed it off, saying it was totally fine and understandable, his gentle words easing the boy's nerves. Ryota's small gesture of noticing his mistake and apologizing impressed Haruto deeply. Soon after, Haruto knelt down, saying he was done cleaning and asked for it to be checked. Ayaka looked surprised, her eyes wide with amazement, saying, "Wow, that was quick." Her voice filled with admiration at how fast and reliable he was. The kitchen and living room shone brightly, every corner sparkling clean. Ayaka stood amazed, softly, saying wow. While Haruto humbly offered to hear any complaints or requests, Ayaka smiled. "It's perfect." With no complaints at all, calling him really good at cleaning, Haruto simply replied that to the extent he chose this job, it made sense. Meanwhile, Ryota ran around the room in excitement, shouting amazing as he pointed at every corner, declaring, "Everything is sparkling," his voice full of joy. As Ayaka admitted he was really a handful, she then spoke warmly, saying, "Parents were on a business trip, leaving her to handle housework and take care of Ryato alone." Haruto listened quietly, noticing how much effort it took before giving a bright, sincere smile and calling her such a good sister. Ayaka smiled with relief, saying, Really glad you came. Haruto turned slightly, answering that it was easy to tell just by watching. Ayaka's cheeks flushed softly as she whispered, "Thank you," her smile carrying both shyness and warmth. Ryota appeared with bright energy, declaring, "Big sister is a great sister." Hiro leaned down, patting Ryota's while Ayaka stood nearby with a glowing expression. Her then spoke with certainty, saying, "That's right. Ridaquin's sister is a wonderful sister." Filling the room with warmth and happiness, head with a gentle hand saying Ryaton is also a great little brother for listening to her. The boy's eyes widened with joy, replying, "Really?" Ryota proudly stretched his arm toward his sister, saying he was called a good brother. Ayaka smiled warmly, while Haruto agreed, saying that's right, as a good boy. Her thought quietly that moments like this felt kind of nice. Ayaka then reminded about dinner being for 4 servings. Haruto asked to check the fridge, and with her permission, he began looking. Eggs and milk, onions, carrots, cabbage, even beef and pork mixed with ground meat. He studied carefully, thinking with these ingredients. Ayaka stood politely, asking to borrow some seasonings, and the request was met with a gentle shore. The shelves revealed a wide variety that caught attention with awe. Hiro suggested with calm words, "How about a hamburger steak?" Ryota, eyes lit up with excitement, shouting, "Hamburger steak!" with pure joy. Ayaka agreed with a gentle smile, saying, "Hamburger steak would be served." Ryota's arm shot high as he cheered with sparkling joy. Her answered with a calm "understood," his steady tone balancing the child's excitement. Then the meal was set on the table, glistening and full of color. Ayaka praised warmly, calling it strong girl power, while Haruto waved a hand with calm denial, saying, "This is pretty normal." Her admiration only deepening as she smiled at him. He accepted the words with a modest laugh, saying, "It's an honor." Her compliment met with his steady reply that the level was too high. Then a note was passed carefully into his hand. Instructions written clearly. Just grill them as instructed. And with a polite nod, he answered, "Thank." The clock struck noon. Haruto said it was time to leave. Ayaka thanked him with a warm smile. And he replied, "Glad to be of service." Ryuta lowered his head in silence, then suddenly clung to him tightly. As Ayaka's gentle touch eased the moment with quiet warmth, Ryuta raised his hand high, smiling as he said bye-bye, and "See you again." Haruto answered softly, "See you, Ryota-kun." While in his thoughts lingered that getting help with house chores from a classmate felt awkward, so there probably won't be a next time. Ayaka called out to him with a gentle look, saying she would walk him to the door. And Haruto replied with a simple, "Oh right," before she bowed gracefully at the entrance, thanking him sincerely for using their service this time. Haruto held out a flyer explaining that if interested in using the service again, there was also a regular contract more affordable than single-session ones, and he added softly that he had to promote it too. Aika looked at him with a smile, saying he sounded like a salesperson, and laughed warmly, yet admitted it felt odd being spoken to so formally by a classmate. Haruto answered with a calm smile, saying it was not that he couldn't speak casually, but Tojo-sama was the client after all. Aiko smiled softly, calling him a client with a small laugh, while Haruto answered calmly and was reminded to hurry back before the hamburger steak grew cold. He nodded, agreeing as Ayaka thanked him warmly for today, her words gentle as she called him Atsukian. Hiro straightened, giving a polite bow with steady words to serving again. And as the door closed behind him, Ayaka stood quietly in thought. The boy stepped outside into the fading light, exhaling with relief, a single word slipping out. Haruto raised a fist with quiet relief, saying the first job was done. Though unsure how it would go, his thoughts drifted to the school's idol, the daughter of a wealthy family living in a completely different world. He told himself to give it up to Moya as he walked beneath the fading sky. While inside, Ayaka smiled brightly at the table, hands folded before her as she declared, "Let's dig in." With Ryuta eagerly joining, the room filled with warmth and cheer. Ayaka lit up with delight, calling the meal the most delicious ever. Her eyes shining as she turned to Ryota, who ate with unstoppable energy, cheeks stuffed and words muffled. She leaned in with concern, reminding him to chew, but his only answer was a big grin and a breathless shout that it was just too good, filling the moment with warmth and laughter. Ryuta asked with a smile if Oni-chan was coming again. Ayaka replied that mom and dad would be home, so a housekeeper might not be needed. The answer brought surprise as she thought for shy little Ryota to open up like this. Atsuki-kwan must be amazing. Her gaze softened with a quiet doubt. The night after the housekeeping service, Ayaka stepped into the shop, the bell ringing softly as she looked around. A voice called her name with calm certainty, and with a wave came the words, "Over here," guiding her toward a familiar presence. Saki leaned back with a playful smile, saying that public confession was such a shock, while Ayaka lowered her gaze, cheeks tense, whispering that it was seriously so embarrassing. The room filled with quiet tension until Saki smirked again, declaring, "Boys are nothing but trouble." While the thought lingered that the boys are still desperate to win over Ayaka. Ayaka rested her hands against her face, remembering middle school days when unfamiliar boys confessed to her almost every week. Ayaka stood frozen, her eyes wide as memories surfaced, blamed by friends for things never done, leaving her hurt and confused since then, struggling with guys and romance, choosing instead to keep distance. Ayaka leaned forward with a sharp tone, wondering what love at first sight even meant, saying, "Dating made no sense without knowing someone's personality." At the cafe table, one girl suggested with a spark in her eyes the idea of a fake boyfriend, wondering why not try it. The other pouted with a soft no. Yet the thought lingered. What if by chance a boy who couldn't confess ended up in a pretend relationship? Wouldn't that be like a romance manga? She admitted there was even a similar story on the bookshelf. Her friend leaned closer with a grin, pointing out the love for those kinds of stories. She spoke with bright excitement, saying, "At first, it's just pretend, but then it becomes real love," laughing that it was so good, while the other pouted and told her not to get carried away, and the evening ended with both standing outside, smiling as they said, "Thank you for the meal." Later, as they walked together, the talk shifted to parents on a business trip and handling housework. She sighed, saying, "It was super hard," remembering 3 days of housework alone while Ryota was such a handful. The little brother shouting he was hungry and making a mess. Her friend praised with a smile, saying doing all that alone was impressive. She admitted softly that mom had said if there was trouble, someone could be called. She admitted with a small smile that a housekeeping service was hired on the last day, leaving about 2.5 days on her own. Her friend surprised and curious if a professional housekeeper had shown up. She answered softly, saying someone like that while thinking that Sukian's housekeeping skills were really impressive. Walking side by side, she felt a quiet thought linger, kind of understanding why Saki had called him gentlemanly, even while knowing she'd probably get teased. Haruto carried a calm demeanor, his gentle smile and polite tone making him appear far more mature than his age. His words praised Ayaka as a great older sister, and for a moment, she thought being friends with Itsukian could be possible. Her hands tightened as the thought lingered, yet his steady reminder came, marking the distance between them. A client after all. Ayaka froze for a moment, her thoughts echoing with the words that made her heart stir. Hearing that made her feel something she couldn't quite name. Her friend called out, noticing the pause and pointed at the signal now green. Ayaka blinked, snapping back, saying, "It's green." While inside, she still thought about how amazing the housekeeper was. As they crossed together, her friend's surprise rang out. That amazing, showing just how deeply the impression lingered. Haruto placed the books neatly on the shelf, his calm voice mentioning days filled with study and part-time work. Then, with a steady gaze, he asked what reason had brought the visit to his house. He smirked, demanding payment for electricity, while Haruto explained the broken air conditioning, and Kui offered cleaning the room instead, leaving a sharp gaze struck with surprise. A guitar rested against the wall, its presence bold, a voice admitting it was love at first sight, even if that love had already left pockets empty. The cheerful friend raised his voice with energy, calling out to Haruto to start a band and enjoy youth. But Haruto only turned his back, calmly, refusing, saying he was too busy with studying and part-time work. His hand brushed along the bookshelf, pulling out a volume with quiet focus. The lively friend leaned in, remembering the first day of the housekeeping job, and Haruto's eyes held a calm, steady look as his hand paused on the book, answering softly. Haruto spoke softly, saying it was rewarding. Ayaka smiled gently, thanked him, and added she guessed so. Tomoya leaned closer, calling Haru's name with a curious look, then simply asked HM. Haruto stood with a faint grin, while Tomoya quickly caught on, asking what that grin was about. Denying it, Tomoya's curiosity only grew, jumping to wild thoughts with flustered cheeks. A tired woman appeared in mind, but Haruto shut the idea down right away, saying nothing like that would ever happen with Tojo, ending with a frustrated sigh and the words, "Idiot." Tomoya shut up in surprise at the name Tojo, eyes blazing with shock, while Haruto tried to brush it off with calm denial. Yet, that faint reaction gave everything away. Tomoya pressing with certainty it was Ayaka Tojo, leaving Haruto sighing in defeat knowing there was no way to hide it any longer. Haruto urged for silence, insisting Tojo-san's privacy must be protected, but Tomoya only grinned, calling it lucky to be invited into her house, and teasing with endless curiosity, even admitting jealousy. Haruto's serious face never wavered. Though inside he sighed, convinced Tojosan must have felt awkward, and that there was no chance she would ever call again. Tomoya leaned back with a teasing smile, asking if awkwardness was really certain, while Haruto frowned, insisting he wouldn't feel awkward at all. Yet, his thoughts lingered that Tojosan would never call again. A quiet sigh followed as Tomoya shifted the topic, asking about Haruka. Hiro answered calmly that summer classes kept her busy, determined to reach the same school next year. Tomoya's grin sharpened with playful mischief, pointing a finger and asking if his sister was being ditched for Tojo, leaving Haruto caught between denial and the weight of unspoken. A cheerful reply came quickly, saying the door would be opened. His eyes lifted with surprise as the lock clicked, and when the door moved, doubt flickered across his face, uncertain if the figure behind it was Tosan or perhaps her sister. The door opened to a graceful woman who welcomed Itsuki Kwan with a warm smile, her words carrying Ayaka's name, leaving Haruto startled and thinking only of who this stunningly elegant lady could be. A bright smile welcomed Itsuki Kugan at the door, the elegant woman saying she had heard much from Ayaka and the others. Hiro answered with a nervous nod. Still caught off guard, she stepped aside with cheerful warmth, urging him to come in, her presence graceful and inviting. Haruto walked forward in thought, quietly realizing he never knew Tojo had an older sister. Ryuta peeked shyly from the doorway, his wide eyes meeting Hiro's as a soft greeting slipped out. The elegant woman smiled warmly, recalling Ayaka's words and teasing about how much the boy had enjoyed the hamburger. Haruta knelt gently, asking if it was delicious, and Ryuta's face lit up as he admitted it was, his small voice full of simple joy. Ryuta beamed with excitement, asking if his mom had eaten the hamburger, too, and she replied with a gentle smile that it was true. Haruto couldn't help but laugh softly, calling it such a warm moment, but then froze in surprise, realizing the elegant woman before him was actually the boy's mother. Her beauty leaving only one thought in his mind. She is so young. Ayaka's mother spoke gently, sharing that both she and her husband ran a company, often too busy and away from home, leaving her feeling bad for the kids. She explained how Ayaka had to handle the household alone, especially when a sudden business trip appeared, and how they told her to call the housekeeping service if trouble ever came. With a warm smile, she admitted that having such a capable helper was truly a lifesaver. Haruto bowed slightly, saying he was honored that she was satisfied. While his thoughts echoed both her parents are company presidents, that explains it, Ayaka's mother thanked him warmly for using the housekeeping service, confirming this was the 3-hour cleaning and dinner preparation course. Her smile brightened as she said that was correct, while Haruto stood politely, listening. Then with a softer voice, she called his name, her eyes curious and thoughtful. Leaning closer, she asked if he was Ayaka's classmate, and with a slight nervousness, he answered, "That's correct." Ayaka's mother smiled warmly, telling him there was no need to be so formal and that he could just call her Ikkyu. Her gentle words asked for something a little more casual, her eyes soft yet firm. Haruto hesitated, still calling her a customer while he stood there thinking she was like John, the school's prettiest girl, but with an added layer of mature charm. Truly as expected of Tojo Zant's mother, but finally answered with a careful understood Iki-san. Her face lit up with joy as she thanked him. Ayaka noticed Atsuki-kun's arrival and welcomed him with a calm voice while he nervously apologized for intruding and thanked them for using the service. Ayaka's mother stood nearby, smiling warmly as Ayaka explained that after mentioning the housekeeper was her classmate, her mother wanted to meet him while little Ryuta tugged at her side, insisting again that he wanted to eat Atsukin's food. Haruto promised to give his all. Ayaka responded with a shy smile, and Ryuta stood close by full of energy. Ayaka's mother watched warmly, suggesting that classmates should interact more casually, while Ayaka hesitated, admitting she had never spoken to him at school. With a gentle smile, her mother encouraged that this moment was a good opportunity to get to know each other better. Haruto was caught off guard, stumbling over his words before agreeing, while Ayaka's mother smiled warmly, her calm presence turning the tense moment into something light and reassuring. Ayaka stood quietly beside Ryuta, her mother's graceful figure towering with calm authority as she asked if Ayaka didn't have any male friends, her words carrying both curiosity and a hint of gentle concern. Ayaka's eyes wavered with unease as she admitted that Atsukin seemed like a nice guy, making this a great chance. Though her heart hesitated, her mother leaned closer, asking if he truly didn't want to be friends. While Ayaka, flustered, protested and begged her to stop, not wanting to make friends for that kind of reason. Ayaka's face turned red as she looked down, murmuring that it's not like she didn't want to. Her mother's cheerful voice quickly followed, declaring that meant she did want to be friends while apologizing to Atsuki for her daughter's stubbornness. Ayaka groaned softly, still flustered, and Atsuki glanced over with a small laugh, caught between amusement and warmth at the scene. Haruto stepped forward nervously, saying he would start with the cleaning and asking if there were any specific requests. Iku thought for a moment, her gaze calm and gentle, before pointing out that the windows were pretty dirty. With focus in his eyes, Haruto began scrubbing, holding up the cloth confidently as he assured that this would get them clean in no time. While Ikki watched quietly from her seat, her expression warm with trust. Ryuta's eyes lit up with curiosity as he pointed to the wet newspaper, asking what it was for. And Haruto explained that the ink would remove the dirt from the windows. Amazed, Ryuta declared it was amazing and begged to try it too, his excitement filling the room. Ikki watched gently, apologizing for Ryuta getting in the way, but Haruto only smiled warmly, handing the boy a piece and saying his help was much appreciated. Outside, Ryuta pressed against the glass with determination, while Haruto's cheerful grin showed how much he welcomed the boy's eager spirit. Ryuta worked on the glass with all his energy, smiling proudly as Haruto praised him, calling his effort great. Iku observed warmly, noting how Ryuta had already grown attached, almost like real brothers. Her gaze then shifted playfully toward Ayaka, wondering aloud if her daughter was sulking because of it or perhaps for another reason, leaving Ayaka flustered and caught off guard by the teasing words. Ayaka's face burned red as her mother teased, asking if she was mesmerized by Atsuki-kwan, leaving her stunned and speechless. Flustered, she burst out in protest, shouting that it was not like that at all, her emotions spilling over in embarrassment. Iku only smiled gently, amused by her daughter's reaction, remarking on how youth shone so brightly in moments like these. Ayaka's face flushed red as Ryuta innocently asked if she had a fever, his wide eyes full of concern. Embarrassed, she shouted that it wasn't red and rushed out, declaring she didn't care anymore, leaving the room in flustered haste. Ryuta tilted his head in confusion, wondering what was wrong, while Ikkyu smiled softly, saying Big Sister was simply enjoying life right now. Haruto stood with a calm smile, saying the cleaning was finished and asking if there were any other requests. Iko looked relieved, thanking him warmly, saying it was perfect and appreciating the hard work. Haruto replied with a gentle smile, glad he could assist. Iku's eyes softened as she admitted that usually cleaning and laundry took up so much of her time, but his help had been a huge support, making this the first time she could be so productive while staying at home. Haruto stood with a thoughtful look, asking about requests for the menu, while Iku placed a hand to her chin, thinking carefully. She admitted it was hot, so something refreshing would be nice, but also filling, especially since Ryota was at that age where he ate a lot. Haruto pondered for a moment, then suggested lemon-flavored cream pasta with cold soup and capri salad, certain the lemon's tanginess would make it refreshing. Iku's eyes lit up, smiling brightly as she called it stylish and wonderful, making the simple dinner plan feel special. Iku mentioned the fridge was empty and asked for shopping help. Hiro agreed with a calm smile. But when the envelope was handed over and the bills slipped into his hand, his eyes widened in surprise, a quiet, "Wow," escaping as he stared at the unexpected amount. Haruto still thought to himself, so this is what it means to be rich. While Ikkyu assured the money would be more than enough and asked about stores or items in mind, he nodded with a calm yes. And when told nothing in particular was needed, he agreed to head out to shop. Ryota peeked over curiously, asking where Big Brother was going, and Haruto replied with a smile, "Going to buy groceries for dinner." Ryuta's eyes lit up with surprise as he echoed the word shopping, and Haruto simply confirmed. Ryuta's voice burst with energy as he shouted, "I want to go too." But Ikki quickly reminded him that Itsuki-kun wasn't going out to play, only working. Haruto confirmed it with a calm note, while Ikki gently asked him to stay at home and wait until he came back. Ryo's shoulders slumped, eyes dim as he muttered softly about helping Big Brother clean earlier, his lively spark fading into quiet disappointment. Ikki looked at Ryota with surprise, saying he was usually such an obedient child, then admitted he must really like Itsukian. Ryuta's eyes softened with quiet hope, while Haruto calmly said he didn't mind if he came along, though Ikki worried that making him shop and also take care of Ryuta would be too much. Yet her thoughts shifted as a sudden idea lit her face, and with a bright smile she declared. Ayaka walked in with calm grace, her plaid skirt swaying softly. Haruto froze in awe, thinking she looked so cute, while the thought lingered that anything would look good on Tojo. Aika was entrusted with Ryota, her steady replies showing acceptance while her mother teased with a playful grin, claiming there were no ulterior motives. Ayaka sighed with a soft gaze, her expression caught between annoyance and fondness before Ryota's eager voice urged his big sister to hurry. And with calm steps, she responded. Ayaka smiled softly and said, "All right." Haruto followed with calm steps, and Ryuta raised his hands high with a bright grin, shouting, "We're off." The three of them stepping out together, turning a simple grocery trip into a cheerful little adventure. Ryuta rode on Haruto's shoulders with a bright laugh, thrilled to be so high while Haruto carried him with ease, saying it was no problem. Iku apologized softly. Ayaka sighed with a quiet geez that Mama and Iku only smiled playfully, claiming no ulterior motives, turning the walk into a light-hearted and warm moment. Ryuta rode high on Haruto's shoulders, full of energy, while Ayaka glanced over, her words calling him a kind person, that yet his calm smile showed more. Ayako admitted he was taking good care of Ryuta, and their walk together felt light, warm, and bright. Her laughed it off, saying it was just from being used to a single child. Haruto walked with Ryuta perched happily on his shoulders, saying being with him felt like having a real little brother, and the thought simply made him delighted. Ayaka glanced his way, wondering if this was how it felt to have a little brother, too, but quickly added that sooner or later the selfish and not-so-cute sides would show. Haruto let out a laugh, while Ryota leaned in curiously, asking what was being talked about. Ayaka answered with a teasing smile, saying they looked like brothers before pointing out the supermarket ahead and telling him to get off now, leaving Ryuta to call out in protest. Ayaka asked what would be bought for dinner. Haruto calmly listed milk, fresh cream, and bacon while adding green vegetables for color. Ryuta listened with wide eyes before suddenly rushing ahead, leaving Ayaka surprised as she called out his name. Ryuta rushed forward with excitement, pointing proudly at the green vegetables he found, calling for his Oni to look. Haruto praised him warmly, holding up asparagus and noting how cheap it was, making Ryuta beam with joy. As they continued shopping, Haruto offered to carry the basket for Tojo. His words simple yet thoughtful, leaving Ayaka silently watching as her mother handed it over with a soft thanks. Ayaka's stare held steady, her words cutting through the air as she asked if Itsuki had a girlfriend. His body flinched in surprise, stumbling over the answer that none existed. Her calm response, "So that's the case," left the moment lingering with a quiet spark between them. Ayaka laughed softly, admitting it felt so natural that he wanted to carry it for her, and that gave the impression he might be used to doing it. Itsuki carried the basket with a gentle smile, saying it was part of his housekeeping job since Tojo was the customer. She nodded lightly, saying that was it, while he suddenly pointed out the pumpkins on a great bargain, suggesting they make a cold pumpkin potak soup, too, bringing warmth to the simple moment. Ryuta's eyes lit up as Itsuki guided him with care, the boy amazed by the pumpkin in his hands. Itsuki lifted it with a calm smile while Ayaka watched closely, her gaze soft and filled with quiet admiration for the scene before her. Itsuki held up the pumpkin and asked if it was okay to buy it, making Ayaka freeze for a moment before stammering that it was good. Her cheeks warm as she gave a small nod with his cheerful, "All right," the choice was made. And soon after, he turned to suggest picking tomatoes while Ryota bounced with excitement, shouting, "Tomato!" with a bright grin. As the door slid open, the group stepped outside together, the air carrying a sense of ease. After shopping, Itsuki let out a quiet breath, realizing how many gazes had followed Tojo inside. Whispers calling her cute, even chic, like a celebrity. Walking beside her, he finally understood that those stares had been on her the whole time, their presence making the moment feel strangely vivid. Itsuki walked beside Tojo, noticing how the crowd's gaze always seemed to follow her. He gently said, "It must be hard to be in a crowded place," making her pause in surprise. She admitted that recently it felt like people were gazing too intensely, moments that were honestly quite scary. Yet, with a small smile, he remarked that it must simply be hard to be a very cute girl, leaving her quietly thoughtful. As they continued on, Ayaka's eyes widened at the word cute, her cheeks glowing as the thought raced through her mind, wondering if Itsuki really saw her that way. She held her chest in surprise, trying to calm her thoughts. Yet, when he asked what was wrong, she stumbled over her words, waving her hands quickly, insisting nothing was wrong, all while her flustered heart refused to quiet down. Her face burned as the word cute echoed in her mind. Ryuta's curious question only made her stumble. She forced a smile, blaming the heat and rushing ahead, calling to walk home quickly, while Haruto trailed behind, puzzled the summer road leading them back toward the quiet of home. Haruto stepped in with a calm welcome, met by a kind smile that called him with Sukaku and the housekeeper. The words made him pause for a moment, but with quiet composure, he answered, carrying himself with a steady grace. Ryuta dashed forward with cheerful steps, calling out a warm welcome, his voice bright with joy, leaping straight into his father's arms. A gentle smile greeted him back, asking if the shopping errand was enjoyed, and his eager answer came quick. Haruto watched quietly, realizing this man was Ayaka and Ryuta's father. With calm composure, the introduction followed. A respectful greeting given as Itsuki, the housekeeper, while the father responded with warmth, presenting himself as their parent. Ayaka asked if today he would be home early, and with a warm smile, it was answered that it was simply because this was the day Itsuki came over. Haruto promised to do his best to meet expectations, while praise came from Ryuta's father, recalling how excellent the last hamburger steak had been and looking forward to the next meal. With determination, Haruto tied his apron, standing ready in the kitchen, declaring the start of dinner preparation with joy. Haruto worked carefully in the kitchen, cutting the pumpkin thinly to put into the microwave, while his hands swiftly prepared asparagus for the pasta. The tomato was perfectly ripe, a good choice for the meal, and every motion showed dedication, doing the best with his arms for the whole Toju family. From the side, admiration rose, saying it was as if a veteran chef was in action with words praising how boys who can cook are wonderful. Smiling, Haruto thanked them for the compliment, promising to bring satisfaction from the taste aspect too. While Ryuta's father nodded warmly in agreement, Ayaka's father smiled warmly, surprised that among her classmates there was a boy with such determination and dedication, asking if she was close to Itsuki at school. Flustered, Ayaka denied being that close, though her father pointed out how earnest and sincere Itsuki seemed. Her father added cheerfully that he would be happy if this gave a chance to become closer to his daughter, leaving Ayaka wide-eyed and embarrassed, calling out in protest, watching quietly. But Suki admitted with a smile that this felt like a kind of fate, too. Be friends as classmates from now on. Ayaka's face softened with a shy glow as she admitted she thought so, her family smiling gently at her side. Haruto paused when Ryota tugged his attention, the boy looking up with bright eyes and asking if Oni would join them for dinner, leaving Haruto startled by the pure and unexpected invitation. Her hesitated at the table, saying he did not mind, but reminded them he was there for his job. Unsure if it would feel awkward for Ayaka, her father warmly invited him, suggesting he stay for dinner, while her mother's gentle smile told him not to be so reserved. Ayaka's quiet gaze lingered, waiting for his answer, encouraged him to be more relaxed as a classmate, making the moment feel both welcoming and full of warmth. Ayaka calmly said she was okay with that, and her father followed with the same answer, both sharing a glance before laughter broke the moment, light and easy. With a confident smile, he introduced himself as Shuichi, asking to be called by his first name. While noting that in this house, everyone was known as Tujin, Haruto asked if it was okay to join for dinner. Shuichi welcomed him with ease. Hiro turned to Ayaka, his voice unsure. She blushed softly and agreed, the moment carrying a quiet warmth that drew them a little closer. Haruto thought about the moment he finally called her by her first name. A quiet tug on his apron pulled him back. Ryota looked up with sparkling eyes, asking to have dinner together, his words full of joy. Haruto smiled and agreed, saying tonight he would have dinner with Ryota, too. The boy cheered with excitement while Haruto turned back to the kitchen, declaring with energy that since it's been decided, he would deliver the best meal for everyone. Shining plates of lemon creamy pasta, cold pumpkin potage soup, and Capri salad were placed on the table with a warm apology for making them wait. The family gazed in delight, one voice saying it felt like visiting an Italian restaurant, another giving thanks and suggesting to start. Hands pressed together as they all cheerfully declared happy dinner, ready to enjoy the meal together. Ryuta cheered with shining eyes, calling the pasta delicious. Ayaka laughed softly, telling him to eat calmly. Shuichi praised the seasoning as perfect. Iki said the food tasted like something upper class. Haruto thanked them with a gentle smile, glad the flavors reached their hearts, and as the family enjoyed each bite, he sat quietly, carrying a calm joy in the warm moment. While Ayaka ate with a gentle expression, hiding her thoughts behind calm eyes, Haruto tasted the food quietly, wondering if Tojozen liked it as well. Ryuta raised his hand cheerfully, asking for more, only to be reminded by Ayaka to finish properly first, and with a playful, he agreed, while Shuichi turned his gaze toward Haruto, calling his name with a tone that carried something deeper. Shuichi asked for a second helping with a cheerful smile, leaving Ayaka surprised, but how fast it was gone. And Ryota quickly raised his bowl, calling his father unfair and wanting more as well. Haruto responded kindly, agreeing to give another serving. Then the question came about who taught him cooking. And with a bright smile, Haruto spoke of his grandmother, saying she not only taught cooking but also other household duties, making Shuichi laugh softly, calling her a great person. Ayaka asked about Haruto's specialty in cooking, and after a pause, he thought carefully, listing dishes like nikujiga and chikazini. Showing calm confidence in his skills, Ayaka, while eating, softly admitted wishing to taste his hamburger steak more. her words drawing a warm laugh from Iku, who teased gently that Itsukian's cooking had taken over her stomach. Ayaka flustered, cheeks turning red as she protested, begging her mother not to say such a weird thing. Iku only smiled playfully, asking for forgiveness, leaving Ayaka pouting with a shy as her face glowed with embarrassment. Plates were cleared with smiles. Shuichi voiced the wish to taste more of Itsuki's cooking. Ikkyu agreed with a gentle smile, her words soft yet certain. A hand reached forward with calm intent, and Haruto looked on in surprise, his eyes wide as he realized this is something unexpected. The flyer on the table spoke of a fixed-term contract. The family's words carried trust and satisfaction. And with a calm smile, Shuichi declared a contract with Itsukian, turning the moment into one filled with promise, uncertainty. Haruto thanked them sincerely, saying he was happy to serve. Shuichi brushed it off with a bright smile. Iku added they were looking forward to working together. Yet, doubt filled Haruto's heart as he wondered if Ayaka felt uneasy, realizing he would spend the summer with her family. While Ayaka's quiet gaze held a feeling she could not put into words, Ayaka smiled warmly, asking Itsukian to do well for them. Haruto responded nervously that he was in their care. And as the family watched, he wondered if this was going to be a much longer relationship than expected. Her rose early, the morning sun casting gentle light while birds chirped outside, his mind resting on the regular contract with the Tojo family. And with Ayaka's gentle smile welcoming him to get along from now on, a new chapter quietly began before him. Haruto stretched awake in the quiet of dawn, his room still dim as the clock marked the early hour. And in the kitchen, a gentle voice greeted him with warmth, returned by his cheerful reply. The aroma of breakfast began to fill the air. Talk of studying early met with a smile, and joy sparked at the sight of Tamagoi cooking on the pan. A simple morning wrapped in comfort and care, setting the day off with steady warmth. Plans for miso soup followed with spinach added by request. At the table, hands pressed together in thanks before the food. The warmth of home filled the air as Tamagoi was shared with smiles. The taste was called delicious, sparking curiosity about how it differed from his own cooking, while joy lit up in every bite. Laughter came gently from the grandmother, praising the dishes he made as well. Thoughts drifted back to a first day on the job when hamburger steak won praise for tasting like food from a fancy restaurant. Proof that the lessons passed down were guiding every step forward. Grandma's smile shone with warmth as she felt glad to hear gratitude. The boy answered softly with thanks, enjoying the calm of the meal. Then her words shifted, speaking of which a sudden question about a girlfriend struck and his peaceful face turned into shock. Caught completely off guard, he paused, fumbling with words as the question lingered. The grandmother gently wondered if such things happen in the second year of high school, and he quickly explained that at school most people don't have girlfriends, saying, "This is how things are nowadays." Her calm reply was simply, "Is that so?" And with a bright smile, he promised someday for sure to introduce a super cute girlfriend, assuring everything is good, so there's nothing to worry about. He walked down the street lost in thought, sighing about a girlfriend, knowing Grandma was probably worried as her back pain grew more obvious. Still, he wished that if he could introduce one, it would make her happy and ease her heart. But with studying, work, and karate filling his days, there was no time. Haruto tried to push away the thought, insisting there was no way someone like Tuji would ever fall for him. Yet her gentle smile stayed clear in his mind, and with a sudden pause at the dojo gates, he let out a quiet breath as if bracing for what came next. The dojo buzzed with quiet focus as students readied themselves. Haruto tightened his belt with calm determination, answering with resolve, sparking the start of training with sharp energy. Kazuo greeted with a heavy voice, calling practice boring without Hudo. His presence fierce as he admitted everyone avoids him when it's time to spar, the air shaking with his intensity. Haruto spoke with a grin about Kazuaki's reputation, only to get caught in a rough hold as Kazu warned him not to spread bad names. Their rivalry in the dojo was clear, yet it felt more like brothers pushing each other to improve. Kazu's sharp presence carried the weight of a fierce nickname. Even though deep inside he struggled with the simple wish of getting along with kids. In the end, the two often shared worries side by side. Shizuka stood firm with sharp eyes, telling Kazu he was in the way. Her glare burned with quiet strength, making the atmosphere heavy. Kazu only laughed, teasing about jealousy and calling her presence dignified as expected from the daughter of the Koen dojo. Hiro watched silently, caught between Shizuka's intensity and Kazu's easy grin. While the playful tension filled the room with energy, Shizuka declared with boldness that dignity was old-fashioned, calling herself a super-energetic and lively high school girl. Hiro observed her spirit with quiet surprise, knowing she was the daughter of the dojo master and a junior at their school. Yet outside the dojo, she carried a different charm. Standing as the second most popular girl after Tujizan, flashing a peace sign with calm confidence that drew every eye, Shizuka stood tall, asking how her flawless beauty should be described. Haruto answered carefully, saying her cuteness was like the traditional Japanese style. And with a sharp gaze, she carried the presence of a Yamo Nadeshiko, graceful yet strong. Shizuka leaned in with sharp eyes, teasing if Haru Senpai was trying to hit on her, then struck a bold pose, sparkling with confidence as she asked if her look was captivating. Laughter filled the dojo as Kazu teased each other, the place like a second home. The clock neared 12, and Haruto, calm with his bag, prepared to leave. Shizuka stepped forward, asking if he was going already, then wished him good work today. With a quiet nod, he walked away, cool and steady, the dojo fading behind him. Kazu stopped them at the door, asking for a favor. Haruto answered with a calm grin, wondering which gang was planned this time. While Shizuka stated firmly that only Haru Senpai held her feelings, the moment turned heavy until Kazu sighed, pulling out a box and saying, "For now, just try this." Haruto looked at the box in surprise, wondering if he was allowed to eat it, eyes fixed on the fruit tart inside. Shizuka took a bite without hesitation, calmly, saying she was not an easy girl who could be baited by sweets, even as the crumbs touched her lips. Kazu's face turned red with disbelief, shouting that she was already eating them. Hiro then lifted one tart, biting carefully, his calm voice answering with a simple okay. Kazu sighed, handing it over with a request, asking Haruto to please try some. Haruto called the tart delicious, only to learn Kazu had made it himself. Shizuka burst out in shock while Kazu smirked, saying the taste was good enough to be sold in a shop. Shizuka declared the tart worthy of a shop and left in her usual sharp way, making Kazu sigh that she was cute but a handful. Haruto praised the taste, asking to learn someday, and Kazu agreed with a grin, saying next time they could bake a cake together. Haruto thanked Kazu for the food, then left for his part-time job, smiling that Ryota would be happy with sweets. The dojo faded behind, and soon he stood before Ayaka House calm and ready for part-time job. Haruto rang the bell, nerves still lingering on his third visit. Hand in hand, they walked inside, the boy excitedly declaring that Oni-chan would be the housekeeper. Hiro replied with a gentle smile, saying, "Not all the time, but during summer break, he would help out." And Ryota jumped with joy, shouting, "Yay!" as the house filled with light-hearted energy. Her bowed politely, thanking them for the job, while Ayaka's mother smiled warmly, telling him to relax more. Ayaka was caught off guard when asked for her thoughts, and Haruto gave a faint smile, saying he would try to act more relaxed though to him. Tojo still shone as the school idol. Haruto pushed aside his thoughts, steadying himself as Ayaka's mother asked for help with the shed. He followed her outside only to find the doors open to a space overflowing with boxes and tools, leaving him stunned as he muttered, "It's packed full." Ayaka's mother explained the shed was full and asked for help to clear it out. While Haruto nodded with resolve, she thanked him warmly, and he answered with a sharp grin, saying, "Let's do this." Hiro stood tall at the shed's entrance, saying, "All right," with quiet resolve, his gaze steady as he began pulling out the clutter, each box and tool revealing really old things stored away. And with a calm step forward, he muttered surprisingly, holding one piece as if weighing memories, then pressed on with unwavering focus. He found it surprising that Tojo-san, despite being from a rich family with a father who was president of a company, carried no arrogance at all. Imagining her as an elegant Ojama made the thought almost unreal. And with that picture in mind, a soft laugh escaped him. Called suddenly from behind, Haruto turned in surprise as Ayaka stepped forward. Her calm tone softening the moment, saying, "Even doing half today would be fine." Her smile gentle yet sure. He nodded quickly, insisting it was totally fine, and with determination shining through, he declared everything would be out by today. The air between them glowing with quiet resolve. Ayaka's gentle smile carried surprise as she asked about his strength. Haruto answered with a shy nod about karate, brushing it off as something normal. Yet, her amazed tone made his heart beat faster. And just as the air grew lighter, a sudden slip cut through the moment with her startled cry. Ayaka spotted the old unicycle, calling it nostalgic with a bright smile, then asked to ride it again. And with Haruto's calm reply, of course, she eagerly climbed on, full of excitement to relive the memory. Ayaka steadied herself on the unicycle, saying, "Here we go," as she pushed forward, laughing in surprise at how hard it felt. While Haruto watched with a calm smile, asking if she was okay and hoping she wouldn't fall. Ayaka rode the unicycle with studied grace, pouting when she thought Suki teased her, then proudly showed she was actually good at it, stopping with a sharp screech and finishing with a playful hump while Suki watched with a quiet smile. Ayaka wobbled on the unicycle, her eyes wide with panic as the pedals slipped, a sharp cry breaking out, and out Suki rushed in, hand outstretched, warning her to watch out just before she lost control. The unicycle hit the ground with a crash. Ayako's breath unsteady as Haruto asked if she was okay. Her eyes glimmering with relief as she softly said, "Yeah," then whispered, "Thank you," her voice carrying his name with gentle warmth. Ayaka sat frozen, cheeks warm as her eyes met Haruto's while he steadied her with a careful hand, his worried gaze locked on hers, turning the stumble into a moment that felt unforgettable. Hiro asked with concern if something happened. Ayaka blushed and said no, insisting she was all right, his gentle smile showing relief as he said he was glad. Then she stumbled with a small cry, both lowering near the fallen unicycle, her eyes shining softly as she apologized. Ayaka confessed with a blush that she suddenly hugged him. Haruto stammered, saying there was no need to apologize, his relief clear. She whispered, "Thank you," softly, calling his name, and he answered with a nervous welcome. The two sat across from each other, hearts unsteady, their closeness unexpected, leaving her cheeks glowing even brighter. Both stayed quiet in front of the shed, Ayaka's face softly blushing as her fingers curled close. Haruto glanced aside with restless hands, then forced out a small, "Anyway," a simple word that tried to cut the silence, but only made the moment feel warmer. Ayaka tried to hide her blush, saying she only came to share what Mama said, her hand trembling on the door. Haruto stayed quiet, his gaze fixed, his heart still racing. The moment of closeness lingering between them, soft and unforgettable. Hiro held his head, embarrassed by the accident with Tojo, sinking in worry and hoping she's not mad, while Ayaka stood at the doorway, her gaze quietly lingering on him. Her cheeks grew hot as her chest thumped louder, the sound echoing with every breath, confusion flooding her mind with a desperate why as her heart kept pounding harder, leaving her frozen in surprise. Ayaka brushed it off as surprise from nearly falling, while Haruto looked on in silence, a little puzzled. When her mother called out, she quickly answered and walked away, her steps fast. Alone at last, she clutched her chest, breathing in and out, trying to steady the rush in her heart. Ayaka returned home, her face still carrying traces of unease, only to be greeted warmly by her mother's voice. She forced a smile, saying, "The work would be finished today," her words steady, though her heart felt restless. Sitting nearby, her mother nodded with a calm, while Ayaka, turning away, repeated what Itsuki had said, her steps quiet as she slipped deeper inside, hiding the storm of feelings beneath her composed tone. Ayaka's mother smiled, saying, "Young guys had a lot of strength." And though she only met Itsuki twice, his perfect work made her fond of him, strict as she was. Lost in thought, Ayaka felt a tug on her hand as Ryuta asked if Oni had finished cleaning. And with a gentle glance, she answered that it would be done soon. Maybe. Her words calm, though her heart stirred quietly inside. Ryuta tugged at his mother's attention, asking to play with Oni-chan, and she smiled, saying, if the cleaning finished soon, maybe he would join. The little boy's laughter showed how much he had opened up, watching Ryota sit happily on his shoulders. She could see why her family had grown attached, her thoughts softening as warmth filled her chest. While Ayaka quietly noticed how Itsuki's gentle demeanor made him feel like a kind-hearted big brother, her sister teased with a playful smile, saying her face was turning red and asking if something happened with Itsuki-kwan. Ayaka froze, stammering at the word, her heart racing as the image of Haruto's calm face filled her mind. Ayaka's face turned red as her family looked at her with surprise. She stammered that nothing happened and blamed it on the heat. Her sister only smiled and wished her luck with studies, making Ayaka rush off, saying summer homework still waited in her room. Alone in her room, Ayaka buried her face into the pillow, her heart racing whenever the thought of Itsuki came to mind, her eyes widening in shock as the words slipped out. Maybe she fell in love before she quickly sat up, begging herself to calm down, only to collapse back onto the bed, unable to stop the pounding in her chest. Sitting alone on the bed, Ayaka tried to reason with herself, thinking it must be because of Saki and Mama's comments that made her this self-conscious. Yet, the thought of only knowing him for a short time felt no different than love at first sight, her heart whispering that Itsuki might be attractive in some aspects. His calming presence, well-behaved nature, and the way he's not pushy quietly lingering in her mind. Ayaka sat deep in thought, remembering how caring and kind he was, how Ryota grew attached to him, how he never judged by appearance, skilled at cooking, cleaning, strong and ranked first at school, someone even Mama and Papa admired. A presence so steady it made her heart race. Her face turned red as thoughts of Itsuki filled her mind, hands covering her lips in panic, urging herself to stop thinking of him, waving her arms as if to push those feelings away, clutching a pillow tight while admitting he was charming, yet reminding herself to think calmly and carefully. Sitting on her bed, she shook her head in denial, whispering that it was impossible to fall in love so suddenly. Yet, the question of whether she loved Itsuki or not lingered in her heart, making her feel no different from the boys who once confessed without knowing anything about her. Holding her pillow close as she admitted the first step was to become friends, wishing to gradually know him, then fall in love. Believing that only after understanding him better, they could truly become lovers, she tossed and turned on her bed, hugging her pillow tight as thoughts of it refused to leave. Her heart spinning with confusion, eyes wide beneath the blanket, caught between wonder and doubt, unsure of what her feelings truly meant, she read the words about falling in love, her heart racing as the story reflected her own feelings. And with just the thought of his eyes, a blush spread across her face, the book in her hands glowing like it held her secret. She discovered the book at last, only to be called from behind, turning with wide eyes as the request came to join Itsuki and Ryuta again. And with a spark of resolve, she agreed instantly, stepping forward with firm excitement. Ayaka rushed out with a cheerful smile, apologizing in haste. Ryuta pulled Itsuki's hand while teasing her for being slow, and Itsuki let out a quiet breath of relief, glad she seemed untouched by what happened earlier. Ayaka stepped outside, announcing the start of their outing. As Itsuki walked calmly beside Ryuta, her thoughts quietly swirling, she wondered if falling in love was real, reminding herself that just like in the manga, the answer should reveal itself when their eyes finally meet. With a deep breath and hands clenched, Ayaka rushed to catch up after Ryuta's call, her eyes briefly meeting Atsuki's calm face as he carried Ryota on his shoulders. And in that quiet walk together, her heart stirred with an unshakable feeling. Ayaka gathered her courage to speak, calling out Atsuki's name with a shy tone, her hand brushing his sleeve as she asked about dinner. He answered with calm confidence, mentioning chilled Odin, leaving her surprised at the idea. Yet his gentle smile carried certainty, assuring it would be tasty and satisfying, a warmth that made the moment quietly unforgettable. Her eyes widened as her chest thumped hard, a hand gripping tightly as if to hold back the sudden rush, whispering for just a minute to catch the storm inside. Her chest pounded as the thought of a racing heart made her fluster. The idea of feelings for Itsuki-kun flashing across her mind, only to be pushed away with a quick denial, insisting it wasn't because of his expression. A smile then formed as she convinced herself it was all about the chilled Odin, excitement bubbling at the thought of tasting it. With relief, she exhaled, telling herself that was close, nearly leading to the wrong idea. While the cheerful voice of Ruta, asking what chilled meant, filled the air, answered simply with the word cold. Ryuta cheered with a big smile, but Suki answered with gentle warmth, and Ayaka's eyes softened as a quiet thought filled her heart. Itsukian will be a good papa in the future. Ayaka walked nervously beside Itsuki, her face turning red as Ryuta called out with innocent curiosity, asking why she was making a weird face. Startled, she denied it, flustered and unsure of how she looked, while Ryota teased her about a funny face. Embarrassed yet determined, she turned to Itsuki with wide eyes, asking if her face didn't look weird at all. But Suki smiled softly, saying a weird face could never fit someone with such a pretty face, leaving Ayaka stunned as her heart raced, his sudden praise echoing louder than she expected. Memories of him casually calling her cute before flashed in her mind, making her wonder if he was just a spontaneous person. He was someone to be cautious of, someone her eyes couldn't help but follow. Flustered, she tried to hide it with talk about chilled Odin. Yet deep inside she knew. Ruta's stare caught her off guard, and the thought struck that even he could notice. Her heart racing with unease, wondering if she was that suspicious. Her hand pressed to her chest as she admitted there was no way to look at Itsuki, properly forcing herself to calm down, determined to steady her mind starting right now back home. Ryuta's cheerful call filled the air, while she returned worn out whispering this is not good at the table, yet inside she admitted being too shaken to look at him. Thanks for going shopping was met with a gentle, that's totally okay. Her eyes shifted in a quiet glance, unable to hide the feelings stirring within. Haruto worked calmly in the kitchen while Ayaka stepped forward with a shy smile, softly admitting she was thinking of lending a hand, her words carrying both courage and warmth. Ayaka hesitated, asking if joining would be a bother, her eyes carrying both doubt and hope. Haruto froze for a moment, surprised by her words, then remembered how eager she had been about the chilled Odin. Smiling softly, he handed her a task, asking for help with the fish cakes, assuring she wouldn't be a bother at all. Ayaka stood in the kitchen, finally able to look at Haruto and speak with a steady smile, her heart thumping just a bit as she worked beside him. The warmth of the moment filled her thoughts, wondering if it was close to what a heroine in a manga would feel. Yet realizing it wasn't quite that strong, together they moved in sync, Haruto guiding her gently, and she nodded with a quiet determined to treasure even this simple closeness. Shuichi stepped in with a casual greeting, his eyes catching Haruto and Ayaka working side by side in the kitchen. A teasing remark slipped out, saying they looked like a newlywed couple. Both Haruto and Ayaka froze, surprise flickering on their faces as the ordinary scene suddenly felt far more intimate. Her face turned deep red from Papa's sudden words, leaving her frozen in embarrassment, laughter spilling nearby as she thought it was just a casual joke. Yet, her heart refused to calm down. Next morning, with the beautiful sky outside, Haruto sat focused at the desk while Tomoya strummed his guitar with carefree energy, joking that too much studying might make one dumb, refusing the idea of cracking open a book because mastering guitar was all that mattered. Tomoya lit up with excitement when Haruto revealed he had gone to the Tojo house a few times though only for work, yet Tomoya couldn't hold back his shock, while Haruto calmly explained it was just a fixed-term contract, and with a teasing grin Toya pushed that being liked by the whole family was great, urging not to miss the chance to get closer to Sonoya, leaned in with a playful grin asking if it might end in dating, but Haruto firmly pushed the thought aside with a big no while Tomoya raised a brow questioning Ng how he could say it so surely and teased that with cooking so good, maybe she would fall for him through her stomach as the memory of Ayaka enjoying the food flashed with her smiling, saying she couldn't live without its Sukian's cooking certain Tajozin wasn't someone who easily fell in love, noting she would have dated long ago if that were the case, teased with a playful grin, calling Tojo the school idol, while Haruto calmly imagined the storm of trouble if dating her. Thinking peace at school mattered more, leaving Tomoya sprawled on the bed, calling him a coward. As Haruto just turned a page and muttered a quiet well. Her thought quietly, Tujin is indeed pretty. Yet behind that image, she was easier to talk to, a carrying on for her brother. And in her soft eyes came the question, does that mean joining would be a bother? While later, Tomoya leaned close, asking about going there again today. Haruto admitted with a small nod. After finishing shopping for his own place, leaving Tomoya groaning in jealousy, Haruto walked into the market, noticing more people than usual. The crowd buzzing with energy around the fresh displays, his eyes catching the sign of a limited-time sale. Beef belly slices only 120 yen per 100 G, while other discounts covered spices and condiments, his hand at his chin as he calculated with calm focus. But then, as he turned toward the entrance, something unexpected caught his gaze, pulling a sharp reaction from him, eyes wide in surprise. Haruto stopped in front of the shelf, eyes widening at the sign that read sesame oil only 78 yen, far cheaper than usual, his thoughts racing at how it was normally over 200 yen. With a playful grin, Tomoya shifted the talk, asking about the housekeeping job, and hinting at Tojo, making Haruto pause, caught off guard by the sudden question about whether anything had been going on between them since then. Wondering what was happening to this world, almost joking in disbelief, his hand reached forward with urgency, declaring, "It must be bought right now." But just as excitement sparked, a note on the shelf revealed the truth. The product limited to one each per customer, leaving him startled with a sharp gasp. Haruto clenched his fist in frustration, muttering about the same problem again, his mind racing for a solution as fingers tapped quickly on the phone, deciding in this situation the best move must be made. A call placed with urgency, his voice steadied as the line connected, greeting his friend, the cheerful reply coming back at once, asking Tomoya to come to the supermarket right now. Smiling with excitement, he declared this chance would not be missed again. While on the other side, Tomoya sensed it was a pressing matter, guessing it was that time once more. A casual question asked if something had been forgotten, but Haruto's tone carried determination. Haruto held the phone close, listening as his friend explained being on the way to band practice. Unable to help this time, leaving only an apology behind with a sigh, Haruto moved to the next call, determination in his eyes. Another voice answered, wondering if heading there right now was needed. But hands busy with baking a cake kept him tied down. Apologies were exchanged, polite words softening the disappointment. And once again, Haruto pressed on. Basket in hand, he walked through the aisle, muttering in frustration, knowing the only one left would decide everything. Her pleaded with determination, offering a proper reward if only Shizuka would cooperate. His voice filled with urgency as he clutched the phone. Shizuka's calm reply suggested playful words about a kiss, then teased with something more, leaving Haruto flustered and questioning in disbelief. With a steady tone, Shizuka revealed the truth. Mom had asked for the lawn to be weeded, so help could not be given. Accepting the answer, Haruto apologized for bothering, wishing good luck instead, while Shizuku, seated with gloves and weeds in hand, ended the call with a light-hearted farewell. Haruto placed the sesame oil into the basket, sighing as he accepted the rule of taking only one. With a calm step, he decided to buy some miso and then head home. Just as he walked further into the aisle, a voice suddenly called out his name, making him turn with a look of quiet surprise. Ayaka stepped into the store with a calm look, recalling that Mama requested wasabi. Her gaze lingered in silence, thoughtful and steady, before she admitted to herself that lately she had been here quite often. The busy aisles and rows of fruits reflected in her eyes as she moved forward, carrying that quiet realization with her. Ayako walked through the store with a soft smile, thinking today too after this meeting at Sukian would be possible, her heart beating faster at the thought. Her eyes sparkled with excitement until a sudden sight made her gasp, finding him already there standing and talking. She caught herself, reminding that it was not good, whispering she shouldn't fall in love just yet. Taking a deep breath, she tried to focus again, murmuring with soy under her breath as she moved along, though her gaze still carried that lingering glow. Ayaka turned a corner and froze, eyes wide as Haruto appeared just a few steps away. Carrying his basket, she quickly slipped behind a shelf, trying to hide, heart racing as she whispered "no way" under her breath. Her walked calmly, unaware, his expression soft as Aika peeked out, covering her mouth in disbelief, whispering his name with trembling excitement. Ayaka's heart raced as her eyes followed Haruto. Her thoughts tangled in hesitation, wondering if it would be better to start talking to him. His figure ahead made her whisper in doubt, still not mentally prepared. Yet it truly was him. She gripped her chest nervously, afraid he might think, "What is this jerk acting like we're close?" if words slipped out too casually. Still, the thought of avoiding him felt unnatural because when people accidentally meet, they should at least greet each other. Even so, with cheeks slightly flushed and eyes uncertain, she stood frozen, caught between courage and fear. Haruto walked through the aisle with a serious face, carrying out a simple shopping duty. Yet, that look made unseen sides of him quietly shine. Aika watched from behind the shelves, feeling happy just by noticing that side, her lips forming a small smile. But as she looked closer, his expression shifted, his shoulders lowering ever so slightly, and he seemed sad. She froze for a moment, her chest tightening with curiosity, her gaze soft and full of wonder as the thought slipped in what happened. Haruto walked ahead with steady steps, his back showing a quiet weight, while Ayaka's gaze followed, worry blooming in her chest with the thought, maybe he's in trouble. Her eyes softened as a small sigh escaped, her hand gently holding on to her dress. With careful steps, she moved forward, sandals tapping lightly against the floor, her heart caught between hesitation and the pull to understand what lingered behind his serious look. Ayaka called out softly, her voice trembling as she said "Suki-kwan," her hand clutching her bag while her heart raced. Haruto turned with surprise, eyes wide as the sudden sound made him freeze, the air shifting around him in a quiet swoosh. Then a warm smile broke the tension. Another voice greeting brightly Tan with an easy laugh that filled the space. Her face turned red, eyes spinning in disbelief as the words "goddess" reached her while she stood glowing in white, hand resting softly on her chest, crowned like a vision. In that instant, the air shifted, a miracle unfolding at a supermarket, leaving hearts racing and the moment shining brighter than ever. The story continued as Haruto unexpectedly ran into Ayaka while shopping at the supermarket. Hiro happily called out to Ayaka and felt as though a goddess had appeared before him. Ayaka froze in complete surprise after suddenly meeting Herodoto at the supermarket. A shocked sound escaped before any other words could follow. Ayaka covered her mouth in embarrassment because a strange sound had slipped out before she could stop it. Ayaka became lost in her own thoughts after hearing Haruto call her a goddess. Ayaka wondered if Haruto truly saw her that way. Ayaka could not understand what those words really meant. Ayaka quietly questioned whether a goddess was really the image Haruto had of her. Ayaka turns toward him and answers softly. Her tells her that there is something he wants to ask. Ayaka listens carefully as she stands still between the shelves. Ayaka stays quiet and waits for what he will say next. Ayaka stands there thinking about his serious tone and wonders what he is about to ask. A small surprised reaction slips out as she tries to stay calm while looking at him. She quietly asking to wait a minute. She pauses and thinks that maybe it is something unexpected as her attention stays fixed on him. Aika suddenly realizes what this moment could mean and reacts in shock as the thought of a love confession comes to mind. While she remains frozen in place, She continues thinking that this is happening so soon after they have just met in a place like this and wonders if it is too out of the blue as the situation feels hard to understand. Hiro stands with a fixed gaze, and as her thoughts settle into certainty that this must be the case because Haruto is looking at her with such a serious expression and there can be no other meaning behind it. Haruto stands with a fixed gaze and calls out Ayaka. Ayaka stands quietly as her thoughts move quickly, and she believes that the right way is to begin as friends, and she becomes certain that if a confession comes then rejection must happen at once, and she convinces herself that he is staring with strong seriousness toward her. Ayaka tightens her hand into a firm grip as resolve builds inside her, and she steels herself with the determination to stay brave and reject what she believes is coming. Haruto raises his voice and asks Ayaka to help buy sesame oil while holding the item with a simple request directed toward her. Ayaka freezes for a moment as she misreads the situation and believes that a confession is about to happen. Ayaka responds with a bright yes as her voice comes quickly with excitement. She moves forward with a cheerful expression and declares that she looks forward to being with him. Haruto asks him if she really wants to help him. Ayaka lowers her head and gives an immediate response of yes, while accepting the request with quiet determination with thoughts rushing through her mind as she realizes how she had just decided to reject him. But her actual response turned out completely different, and she calls herself as she tries to understand the situation and wonders if helping to buy sesame oil means something like a first step of working together like a married couple. While her mind misreads the meaning and she becomes more flustered, Ayaka stands frozen. The words forming in her mind suggest a sesame oil marriage proposal, and she questions if this could be his way of proposing as confusion and disbelief take over. While she keeps staring at the item in her hand, Haruto stands with a relaxed smile, expresses gratitude while explaining that the special sale allows only one bottle per person and that he was in a difficult situation. His tone remains light and simple as he thanks her for helping and accepts the assistance with ease. Ayaka stood quietly without a word. She noticed the sign that limited sesame oil to one bottle for each customer. She finally understood why another bottle could not be bought. Ayaka laughed at herself after realizing the misunderstanding. Ayaka understood that Haruto only wanted help buying sesame oil. Haruto watched her with quiet confusion because her reaction still made no sense to him. Ayaka held out the bottle and asked if buying it instead would solve the problem. Haruto quickly accepted and promised to pay later. He felt relieved because the special sale finally worked. Ayaka stood quietly while holding the bottle. She could not bring herself to face Haruto because the misunderstanding still lingered in her heart. Ayaka held the sesame oil close and admitted that the embarrassment had become overwhelming. Ayaka could only think about the strange sesame oil marriage proposal that never existed. She called herself a complete and an idiot because every thought had been nothing more than a misunderstanding. She handed the bottle to him and told him to take it. He accepted the sesame oil and received it with gratitude. Hiro thanked her once again because the help meant so much. She smiled after gratitude and felt happy that everything had worked out. Haruto looked at the bottle with delight because getting sesame oil for only 78 yen felt unbelievable. Hiro believed the god of sesame oil had blessed this year's sale with a wonderful reward. Ayaka covered her smile with one hand and laughed at Haruto's words. She wondered what kind of god the god of sesame oil could possibly be. She admitted that Haruto was surprisingly good at making jokes. Haruto laughed softly and apologized because the excitement had carried him away. He admitted that the special sale had made him far too excited. Ayaka, she quietly wondered how the kanji should be read. She softly sounded out Biri, then Tai before trying to figure out the rest. Haruto asked if he could look at the Ayaka handed over the phone and agreed without hesitation. Haruto looked at the screen and figured out the reading. Haruto believed the kanji was read as Sarah because the fish and spring characters formed that word. She smiled after hearing the explanation. Aya admitted that Haruto really knew a lot. Haruto moved a little closer so he could read the phone better. He looked at the screen and thought that Sarah would be a good choice for cooking. She quietly realized that the distance had become too close. She noticed that Haruto was standing beside her. She became flustered because Haruto had not moved away. Ayako wondered what should be done. She thought that moving away now might make her seem too self-conscious. She decided to stay where she was. She quietly wondered if Kudo really did not mind standing this close to her. He realized that she had moved much closer to her than expected. He wondered how he could escape from the awkward situation. Hiro noticed that the distance between them had become much too close. He admitted that he was not her boyfriend. He also noticed Ayaka's pleasant scent. He scolded himself for thinking about something like that. He quickly realized those thoughts were completely inappropriate. Haruto decided that moving away too suddenly would make him seem too aware of the situation. He chose to step back in a natural way. Haruto asked Ayaka if her house had a gas stove. Ayaka walked beside him while listening to the question. Ayaka looked surprised after hearing about a gas stove. She admitted that she was not sure. Ayaka thought there might not be one at home. He explained that Sarah tasted best when grilled. He remembered there was a home center next to the building. He decided to buy a gas stove there. Ayaka hesitated for a moment before gathering her courage. Ayaka quietly asked if she could go with Haruto too. Ayaka was startled by her own request. She realized that the words had slipped out by reflex. He looked at her with surprise and asked if she meant the home center. She admitted that she had never been to a home center before. She quietly hoped Haruto would understand. He realized that it was only natural. He thought that a girl like Ayaka would probably never visit a home center. Her turns with a soft smile and gently asks Ayaka if they should go together. Ayaka holds her phone close and smiles brightly as she agrees without hesitation. Her thoughts quietly settle on the feeling that being with him feels comforting even if she does not fully understand why yet. She wants to stay with Itsuki-kwan a little longer. Both of them begin walking together in silence as their steps match naturally. Ayaka suddenly recalls the moment from earlier and lets out a small gasp. Ayaka covers her face in embarrassment while the thought lingers that if Haruto had truly been confessing to her, then Ayaka thinking that if it were him, then she would naturally accept those feelings and stay by his side. They move forward together, and her heart reacts strongly as she realizes her feelings toward Haruto are changing. Ayaka feels a strange feeling in her chest while thinking what this commotion inside her chest means. Haruto turns and asks what happened while Ayaka looks at him still confused and trying to calm her feelings. Ayaka reacts shyly and looks away for a moment while Haruto waits and the silence feels a little awkward. Haruto holds an eco bag and asks if she means this while Ayaka looks at it and softly says it looks cute, and Haruto responds in simple curiosity. Ayaka noticed the bear design and explained that his grandmother usually used this one. Haruto admitted that he liked it quite a lot as well. She quietly listened and found another small part of Haruto's everyday life that brought a gentle smile. Ayaka looked toward Haruto with a bright smile and thought Haruto's grandmother was adorable. He let out a cheerful laugh and offered heartfelt gratitude for everything Ayaka had done. Ayaka stepped into the home center, and a soft sound of amazement escaped as endless rows of products stretched before her. The place held far more items than she had ever imagined, and the discovery filled her with quiet excitement. Ayaka looked around once again and admitted that she had never expected a home center to sell so many different products. Haruto watched Ayaka admire the store and explained that almost everything could be found here because of the wide variety of product lineups. Ayaka suddenly noticed something that caught her attention, and a small sound of surprise slipped out. She noticed the sign for the pet corner. Haruto wondered if taking a look there for a while would be a good idea. The simple suggestion immediately caught Ayaka's attention. Ayaka looked at Haruto with a bright smile and eagerly hoped they could visit the pet corner together. Haruto gladly agreed without any hesitation and welcomed the idea with an easy smile. Ayaka happily hurried toward the pet corner with an excited cheer. Haruto followed behind her. Ayaka stopped before the small puppy, and a soft sound of surprise escaped her. The tiny little dog looked so fluffy that she could not hide her delight. The fluffy puppy stood before Ayaka with its tiny body full of charm. Ayaka found the little puppy so cute that her attention stayed completely on the adorable little companion. Ayaka slowly lowered herself in front of the little puppy and found it coming closer with tiny steps. Aika smiled while holding the little puppy and admitted that she had never known a Pomeranian puppy could be this small. Haruto quietly watched her enjoy the adorable little dog. Ayaka could not hold back her excitement because the little puppy was simply too cute. Haruto smiled softly while watching Ayaka happily play with the little puppy. Ayaka happily called Haruto and excitedly showed the tiny little paws of the puppy. The adorable sight made her smile even more as she enjoyed every little movement. Haruto quietly watched Ayaka playing with the puppy and found her unbelievably cute. He could not help staring at her as the happy scene completely caught his attention. Hiro looked at Ayaka and noticed how much she loved dogs. The question came out naturally as he wondered if she really liked them that much. Ayaka happily admitted that very few people could dislike such cute little animals. Haruto smiled and thought that visiting a petting zoo with Ayaka sounded like a lot of fun. The simple thought slipped out so naturally that he did not notice how it could be understood. Ayaka happily admitted that she also wanted to visit a petting zoo someday. Haruto suddenly became speechless after realizing what those words sounded like. Haruto quickly realized that the words had only been meant as a casual comment. Instead, they had sounded like an invitation to a date at a petting zoo. Ayaka looked at Haruto with quiet confusion, and a small sound escaped her lips. She waited for his answer while wondering why he had suddenly become so flustered. Haruto quickly tried to explain that it was not like that, and that the words had only come out by accident. Ayaka quickly agreed and explained that the conversation was about the zoo because Ryota really loved places like that. Ayaka smiled brightly and repeated that Ryota really loved it. Her cheerful answer helped ease the awkward mood and brought light-hearted warmth back between them. Ayaka admitted that her parents were always busy with work. Ayaka and Ryota had never really found the chance to visit the petting zoo together. Ayaka also confessed that going there with only Ryota would make her feel a little uneasy. Ayaka shyly added that if Haruto came along too, then Ryota would be very happy. Haruto finally understood and happily accepted the explanation. Haruto realized that Ryota really loved visiting the zoo and the misunderstanding quietly disappeared. Ayaka nervously agreed and quickly admitted that was exactly what she meant. The hurried answer carried a quiet effort to make her thoughts clear. Ayaka smiled shyly and softly explained that was the reason. A quiet sound escaped as she searched for the right words and hoped Haruto would understand what she wanted to say. Haruto looked at Ayaka with a gentle smile after hearing her explanation. The misunderstanding had faded away and his heart finally felt at ease. Her smiled and suggested visiting the zoo together next time. Haruto quickly added that Ryota would come too and that the three of them could enjoy the trip together. Ayaka softly agreed with a shy voice. Ayaka repeated that the three of them would go together with Ryota and quietly accepted Haruto's invitation. Ayaka smiled quietly while the happy promise still remained in her heart. Haruto paused for a moment as the silence lingered between them. Haruto suddenly remembered the reason they had come and realized they still needed to buy the gas stove. Ayaka quickly agreed that buying the gas stove should come first. Hiro and Ayaka quietly walked side by side toward the next stop. Their footsteps naturally matched as they left the pet corner behind and headed for the home center. Haruto and Ayaka quietly walked side by side after leaving the home center. Haruto nervously asked if it would be all right for him to visit Ayaka's house again later. Ayaka softly agreed and accepted the idea without hesitation. Haruto brought up the zoo plan once more. Ayaka looked at him with a gentle smile and quietly asked if the conversation was about that plan. Haruto suggested talking about the zoo later and deciding the schedule and everything else another time. She understood and happily agreed that they should do that then. Haruto smiled awkwardly and said goodbye for now while promising to see Ayaka again later. The simple farewell carried a quiet warmth that made him linger for a moment before leaving. She waved gently and returned the goodbye with a soft smile. She wished Haruto farewell and looked forward to the next time they would meet again. Hiro quietly walked away from the home center while carrying the shopping bag. Ayaka headed in the opposite direction and the distance between them slowly grew. Haruto suddenly stopped and turned around. Something quietly drew his attention back toward Ayaka before he continued on his way. Hiro and Ayaka remained standing apart, while their gazes naturally met once again. Ayaka had also stopped walking and quietly looked back at Haruto. Even after saying goodbye, she still found herself wanting one more look at him. Haruto watched Ayaka's back as she slowly walked farther away. Haruto suddenly wondered if he had broken one of his own rules. Haruto quickly reminded himself that Ryota would be there too, so it could not really be a date. Haruto decided he must have misunderstood the situation and tried to calm his thoughts before walking on. Haruto suddenly remembered a question someone had once asked him. The thought returned with unexpected clarity as he recalled whether he would still do nothing even if Ayaka openly showed her feelings for him. He could no longer ignore that his own feelings were slowly becoming impossible to overlook. Haruto let out a quiet sigh and decided to stop thinking about it for now. Haruto turned his attention to cooking fish for today and walked home while trying to clear his mind. Later, Haruto arrived at the entrance and asked for pardon for the intrusion. After returning from the supermarket outing with Ayaka, Iki welcomed Haruto with a bright smile and let him know he was welcome. Ruta suddenly rushed over while calling for Haruto to come quickly because the fish were looking great. He almost lost his balance and reacted with a quiet whoops. Haruto hurried toward Ryota after hearing the urgent call. Ryota excitedly urged Haruto to come quickly because the fish were looking great. Shuichi welcomed him with a bright smile. Shuichi felt happy that Haruto had finally arrived and warmly greeted Haruto. Haruto shared that Ayaka had already told him Haruto had gone fishing. Shuichi admitted that he had indeed gone fishing. He happily showed Haruto what he had received. Haruto looked into the cooler and admired the fish with quiet amazement. The fresh catch rested inside, as everyone gathered around with growing excitement. Hiro admired the catch and felt that every fish was a great catch. Ryuta stayed beside him and listened with excitement. Shuichi agreed with Haruto and explained that one of his business partners loved boat fishing. He shared that they sometimes went fishing together on a boat. He recalled that a yellowtail had struck the bait with great force. He pulled as hard as possible and believed the line had caught on the bottom near the bridge. He soon realized that the catch had turned out to be something far better. Hiku called Shuichi with a gentle smile and reminded him that the fish would lose their freshness if the conversation continued for too long. Shuichi accepted her reminder without complaint. Haruto felt that the fish deserved proper cooking. He asked what the best way was to prepare each of them. Shuichi paused and thought about the question. He quietly considered the best way to cook each fish before giving an answer. Ayaka noticed Haruto and softly called his name. A quiet sound escaped her lips as she stood by the doorway and looked toward him. Haruto turned toward Ayaka and answered with quiet silence. The brief pause lingered between them as neither found the next words. Ayaka hesitated before welcoming Haruto into the house. Haruto politely excused the interruption while Ayaka shyly welcomed him inside. Iku smiled at Ayaka and asked what had happened between her and Haruto. Haruto quietly lowered his head while Ayaka searched for an answer. Haruto answered that nothing had happened. Ayaka also admitted that nothing special had happened. Iku smiled with quiet amusement and told Haruto that Ayaka was about to prepare a meal full of love for everyone. Iku asked what Haruto wanted to eat. While Ayaka could only respond with quiet surprise, Iku looked toward Haruto and called his name with playful warmth. Haruto agreed with a smile and promised that he would happily put his whole heart into the cooking. Ayaka heard those words and suddenly believed Haruto would put his whole heart into cooking only for her. The thought left Ayaka frozen in surprise. Haruto quickly explained that his effort was not only for Ayaka, but for everyone. Ayaka gently told Iku to stop teasing Haruto while Iku warmly praised Haruto and found him truly charming. Ayaka gently told Iku to stop teasing Haruto while Iku warmly praised Haruto and found him truly charming. Ryota eagerly called for Haruto and happily declared that sashimi was exactly what he wanted to eat. His excitement quickly spread through the room as he looked, clear his throat, forward to the fresh meal. Shuichi explained that fresh fish were usually prepared as sashimi because that was the way most people enjoyed them. Haruto agreed with the idea and suggested serving them as 3 different styles of sashimi. Haruto suggested grilling one of the fish and making a rich broth from the yellowtail marrow. Iku felt that the idea sounded wonderful and gladly encouraged him to prepare it. Hiro understood the plan without hesitation and decided to begin preparing and cooking the meal for everyone. Hiro carefully drew the knife across the fish and cleanly sliced through it. Every precise cut showed steady skill as the preparation continued without hesitation. The smooth rhythm of each movement revealed long practice and quiet confidence. Shuichi watched Haruto work and admired how skillful his hands were. Simply watching the careful preparation impressed him and earned Haruto sincere praise. Haruto gratefully accepted the compliment and humbly thanked Shuichi for his kind words. Iku wondered whether Haruto might teach her how to cook fish. Haruto welcomed the idea and happily promised to teach Ayaka if she truly wanted to learn. Iku felt pleasantly surprised by the answer and quietly accepted Haruto's offer with growing anticipation. Iku invited Ayaka to join everyone. Ayaka hesitated and softly wondered whether joining them was truly the right choice. Iki suddenly realized that if Ayaka's future husband was someone like Haruto, then learning to cook fish might not even be necessary. The playful remark reached everyone without restraint and carried an unmistakable meaning. Ayaka froze in complete surprise and quickly protested that Iku should not say such things in front of Haruto. Embarrassment filled Ayaka as she tried to stop the teasing before Haruto could react further. Iku quickly insisted that she had only said someone like Haruto and not Haruto himself. Ayaka desperately tried to correct the misunderstanding while hoping those words had not been taken the wrong way. Iku laughed softly and asked Haruto to continue being friends with Ayaka, even if Ayaka could sometimes be a little absent-minded and dreamy. Haruto quietly agreed and admitted that he also looked forward to staying good friends with Ayaka. His honest answer carried quiet sincerity and reached Ayaka without hesitation. A silent glance passed between them, and neither Haruto nor Ayaka could look away for long. Ayaka gently held her face as Haruto's words settled in her heart. Haruto fell into thoughtful silence as the room became quiet around him. The lingering feelings from the conversation stayed close and refused to leave his mind. Shuichi quietly considered everything that had happened and slowly reached a conclusion. Shuichi realized that if Ayaka married Haruto, then Haruto would become his son-in-law. The thought lingered in Shuichi's mind as quiet understanding took shape. Ayaka and Haruto turned toward each other at the very same instant. Shuichi admitted that he did not feel ready to let his precious daughter get married yet. Ayaka quickly stopped Shuichi and insisted that he should stop imagining such strange things on his own. Haruto froze in complete surprise as the unexpected question caught him without any chance to prepare an answer. Ryuta looked at Haruto with innocent curiosity and asked if Haruto was truly going to marry Ayaka. Haruto could only watch her in quiet surprise as the unexpected conversation left both of them unable to find any words. Ayaka hurried toward Ryuta and begged him to stop talking. She pleaded with him not to say those things because Haruto was holding a knife and those words could distract him. Ryuta innocently wondered if Haruto married Ayaka, then Haruto would become his real older brother. Ayaka could only let out a stunned sound as the innocent question left her completely flustered. Ayaka desperately begged everyone to stop talking about marriage. Shuichi smiled and Ayaka reminded everyone that they were still only high school students. Haruto quietly listened. Hiku smiled with gentle amusement and remarked that the marriage could happen after Haruto and Ayaka had both graduated. Ayaka immediately begged Iku to stop talking as her embarrassment only grew stronger. She was completely exhausted as the events of the day continued to linger in her thoughts. She remembered that Haruto had prepared such a delicious dinner for everyone. She realized that she had been so overwhelmed that she could not relax enough to truly enjoy any of the wonderful dishes. The thought quietly returned to her mind and gently lifted her weary mood. Ayaka released a long sigh before suddenly remembering the plan to visit the zoo with Haruto. Ayaka reflected that if the plan for the zoo had come up during dinner, then everyone probably would have become even more excited. She quietly felt that the situation could have become far more overwhelming. Ayaka realized that everyone had truly started to like Haruto. She thought that Shuichi seemed especially serious whenever the conversation turned toward marriage. Ayaka placed a hand against her chest and admitted that the real problem was not only the conversation. She realized that the most serious matter rested inside her own heart. Ayaka remembered Shuichi admitting that he still could not bring himself to let his precious daughter get married yet. Ryuta innocently wondered once again if Haruto was really going to marry her. His simple question echoed inside Ayaka's thoughts and refused to disappear. Ayaka hugged her knees and admitted that even she had started imagining it a little. The thought stayed close to her heart and filled the quiet night with feelings she could no longer ignore. Ayaka lay across her bed and remembered the senior who had once tried to propose to her. She had believed that getting engaged while still in high school was a completely ridiculous idea. Ayaka buried her face against the bed and stayed speechless. Ayaka stared at the phone resting beside her and remained completely silent. Her hands slowly reached toward it. Ayaka reached for the phone after a brief pause and accepted the incoming call. Saki greeted her with a cheerful hello, then gently asked what had happened. Ayaka quietly admitted that something had been troubling her and hoped Saki would listen for a little while. Saki welcomed every word with warm concern and soon wondered if those worries were about love. Ayaka could only hesitate before giving a quiet response. Ayaka rested on her bed while uncertainty filled her thoughts. Ayaka admitted that maybe those feelings were real and remained silent as the weight of that answer settled inside her. Saki reacted with complete surprise after hearing Ayaka's answer. Saki stumbled with a painful thud and cried out before realizing that Ayaka had truly been serious. She quickly noticed something was wrong and asked if Saki was all right. Saki refused to believe it because Ayaka had always hated talking about boys and now wanted to discuss love. Saki declared that staying calm was impossible and wondered who had finally managed to shake Ayaka's heart so deeply. Ayaka confessed that she was not completely overwhelmed by love yet and insisted that nothing had reached that point. Ayaka tightened her grip on the pillow and quietly pleaded for Saki to listen until the end. Aiko admitted that she was trying to understand the feelings growing inside her, but could not figure them out alone. Aiko revealed that this was why she wanted to have a heartfelt talk with Saki and share everything weighing on her heart. Saki quickly accepted the idea and promised that everything was understood. Saki decided that talking through the phone would only waste time and proposed meeting face-to-face instead. Saki happily promised to spend as much time as needed talking with Ayaka. Ayaka could only stare in complete surprise after hearing such an unexpected offer. Saki immediately arranged a meeting for tomorrow at 11 in the morning at the usual cafe. Aika hesitated and tried to stop Saki for a moment. Saki brushed aside every small concern and warmly promised that everything could wait until tomorrow. Ayaka quietly accepted the plan and agreed to meet Saki the next day. Ayaka looked at the phone after the call ended and quietly realized that Saki had already hung up. She let the phone fall onto the bed and sank back against the pillow. The weight in her heart remained while the coming meeting filled her thoughts. She gazed into the distance without speaking as countless feelings drifted through her mind. She wondered whether talking with Saki would finally help her understand the feelings growing inside her. Morning arrived with birds singing outside the window. Ayaka softly answered that breakfast would be nice. Ayaka looked over the breakfast spread and quiet amazement escaped as every dish before her looked wonderfully prepared. Ayaka admired the meal with growing appreciation and found that today's breakfast truly felt extraordinary. Every bite reminded her of a luxurious Japanese restaurant breakfast, and the delicious meal filled her with sincere admiration. Iku remembered that Haruto had been told the night before about the early departure that morning. Because of that conversation, Ikkyu immediately prepared the breakfast before the day began. Aika listened with growing admiration as Ikkyu explained that the breakfast included tameshur, Spanish mackerel prepared in Sukiyaki style, with yellowtail soup. A clear soup made from red snapper broth. The impressive menu left Ayaka quietly amazed. Gratitude filled the table as the meal began with a heartfelt meal. Ayaka covered her lips with one hand as she admitted that everything tasted wonderfully delicious. The peaceful breakfast continued as both of them shared the meal across the table. Iku watched Ayaka enjoy the meal and gently remarked that seeing Ayaka eat with such happiness brought great joy. Ayaka looked toward Iku without a reply, while quietly waiting for what would come next. Iku softly called Ayaka's name, as if something had come to mind. Iku reflected that youth lasted only for a brief part of life, and passed before anyone truly realized it. Iku continued that this period of life was filled with happiness, struggles, troubles, and joy. Even so, it remained one of the most important stages anyone could experience. Iku gently encouraged Ayaka to treasure every moment that could still be lived. Now, Iku believed those precious days would someday become the greatest treasure in Ayaka's life. Ayaka quietly protested that treating the situation that way felt unfair to her. Iku let out a soft laugh because a mother could easily see through her daughter's heart and every little thought. In the meeting place, Ayaka quietly waited inside the cafe while watching the time pass, and every passing minute made Saki's arrival feel farther away. Saki quickly reminded Ayaka that the story had truly been told before. Ayaka then remembered speaking about a boy who seemed to share a natural chemistry with her. Saki softly wondered if the chemistry Ayaka mentioned could truly belong to Itsuki. The quiet question carried growing curiosity as Saki searched for the answer. She quietly admitted that perhaps the person was Haruto. Ayaka gently confirmed that it was true. Saki suddenly lost all composure as disbelief rushed through every thought. Saki could only wonder how such a thing could happen and repeated the question again with complete surprise. Ayaka quietly admitted that the truth was actually far more complicated than it first appeared. Saki laughed with delight as the story reached another unexpected turn. Saki felt the entire story was incredible and even wondered if destiny had brought everything together. Saki also playfully questioned whether Itsuki was truly as wonderful as the story made him seem. Ayaka reminded Saki about the request from yesterday and revealed a sincere wish to spend more time talking together. Ayaka quietly confessed that no answer had been found yet. Ayaka admitted that the feelings toward Haruto still remained uncertain and the heart could not decide whether they were love or something entirely different. Ayaka remembered that Saki had once experienced having a boyfriend. Ayaka believed that memory might help and hoped Saki could offer an answer that would finally make those confusing feelings easier to understand. The silence lasted for a while as Saki carefully considered everything Ayaka had shared. Saki finally understood why Ayaka had no experience with feelings like these. Saki realized Ayaka had avoided boys for many years and naturally had no idea how to understand such emotions. Saki suddenly burst into laughter and called Ayaka unbelievably adorable. Saki teased that Ayaka had barely slept the previous night because of those feelings. Ayaka protested and begged Saki not to make fun of the situation. Saki quickly apologized with a cheerful smile and admitted the teasing had gone a little too far, that Itsuki had stayed in Ayaka's thoughts almost every day recently. She confirmed the uncertainty remained because the heart still could not tell whether those feelings were love or only admiration. Ayaka gently admitted that Saki had understood everything correctly. Saki accepted the answer with a thoughtful nod. The next words carried the beginning of an answer that Ayaka had been waiting to hear. Saki suddenly asked Ayaka to introduce Haruto. The unexpected request carried complete confidence, as if the answer had already been decided. Ayaka could only stare in complete disbelief. The unexpected proposal left Ayaka speechless, and only a confused reaction escaped. Ayaka questioned the reason behind such a request. Ayaka could not believe Saki was serious and hoped the entire suggestion was only a joke. Saki immediately denied that it was a joke. Saki firmly declared that the next time that Suki visited Ayaka's house, Saki also wanted to come over and meet him. Saki firmly stopped Ayaka before another word could continue. The short warning urged Ayaka not to go through with that idea. Ayaka could only let out a quiet response. Saki patiently waited while Ayaka struggled to gather the courage to continue the conversation. Ayaka softly questioned whether refusing was truly impossible. Ayaka remembered that only Ayaka had ever witnessed Haruto's rare side while helping with the housekeeping. Ayaka feared that if someone else saw that special side of Haruto, then even Saki might become close to him. Ayaka quietly admitted that the thought alone felt painfully unbearable. Ayaka understood that such a thing could never be allowed to happen. Ayaka remembered that Saki was a genuinely charming girl. Saki could become comfortable around boys without difficulty and always found interesting conversations with remarkable ease. Ayaka imagined Saki becoming good friends with Haruto. Ayaka suddenly froze as the thought struck deeply. Ayaka felt her thoughts whisper that everything precious might be stolen. Surprise rushed through her mind while a soft breath escaped with a startled sound. Her body reacted at once as a swift movement followed and left her unable to understand what had just happened. Saki wondered whether Ayaka was truly worried that Haruto's attention might be stolen away. Ayaka could only respond that maybe that was true. Saki asked why Ayaka would feel that way if those feelings truly existed. Ayaka quietly questioned why such emotions had taken root inside her heart. Saki gently explained that if Haruto became close with Saki, then Ayaka would lose the chance to witness his rare side because someone else would share that place instead. Ayaka slowly realized that losing sight of Haruto's rare side to someone else was something she truly hated. Ayaka questioned why those feelings existed. Ayaka wondered if that meant Haruto was someone she wanted to keep only for herself. The question remained without an answer as her heart searched for the truth. Haruto's gentle smile quietly appeared within Ayaka's thoughts. Ayaka finally understood. The truth slowly unfolded before her, and Ayaka realized what those feelings truly meant. Saki gently asked whether Ayaka was truly in love with Haruto. Ayaka quietly wondered if those feelings really meant love. Saki believed that was almost certainly the answer. Saki noticed that Ayaka still looked unconvinced. Ayaka admitted that she still could not understand those feelings no matter how much she thought about them. Ayaka lowered her gaze and accepted that she still did not understand her own heart. Those uncertain feelings remained inside her as she searched for an answer. Ayaka desperately questioned which part of Haruto had captured her heart. She also wondered when those feelings had begun because the answer refused to appear. She remembered that her first close encounter with Haruto had only happened at the beginning of summer break. Ayaka could not understand how such deep feelings had grown in such a short time. Ayaka recalled how many romance manga made the moment of falling in love completely obvious. Those stories often devoted an entire double page to that single scene and made every feeling impossible to miss. Saki gently explained that romance in real life was different from romance in manga or novels. Even if those stories still carried some truth, Aiko wondered if people never truly realized the exact moment they fell in love. Saki assured her that love rarely worked in such a simple way. Saki explained that before anyone noticed their heart had already chosen someone, that person quietly remained in every thought and naturally became the one who filled every moment of the day. Ayako admitted that even if those feelings were real, she still could not understand what had started them. Saki quietly focused on one word and repeated that the trigger was what troubled Aiko. Aiko believed the trigger should have been obvious. Saki smiled softly because the answer was already waiting to be revealed. Saki prepared to explain the reason. Ayaka could only watch with quiet surprise as she waited for the answer that might finally untangle her heart. The moment Ayaka requested a housekeeping service, a male classmate with hidden talents appeared only for her. That encounter had become the true trigger that quietly changed her heart. Saki revealed that the true beginning had been almost like a dream. Ayaka held a hand against her chest while the countless memories with Haruto gathered one after another. Ayaka accepted that every memory after that moment continued to follow naturally, and Ayaka finally understood that those moments were the rest of the answer. Ayaka finally accepted everything and quietly admitted that the answer was yes. Ayaka understood that this was the journey of how love for Haruto had quietly grown inside her heart, and the answer finally became clear. Saki felt happy because Ayaka had finally reached the answer that had been waiting within her heart all along. Saki watched Ayaka with a satisfied smile. Saki realized Ayaka had finally understood everything, and Ayaka had finally recognized the feelings within her heart. Ayaka's first love had now truly begun. Ayaka held the drink in her hands while the next words slowly formed within her heart. Ayaka could only think about a confession. Ayaka quietly accepted that the truth had become clear. Ayaka had truly fallen in love with Haruto, and the next step naturally came into her mind. Saki noticed Ayaka softly murmured in surprise while watching the change in her expression. Ayaka suddenly panicked as the thought of confessing to Haruto filled her mind. Ayaka wondered if a confession to Haruto should really happen. Saki gently told Ayaka there was no need to rush. Ayaka wondered if a confession should really wait, and quietly accepted Saki's advice. Saki explained that a confession was the final level. Saki believed many steps had to be completed before reaching that destination, and Ayaka quietly accepted that there were still many levels ahead. Saki looked at Aika with confidence and explained that the first level was becoming much closer to Haruto. Aika quietly listened while the new goal settled firmly inside her heart. Saki revealed that the next step was asking Haruto out on a date. Ayaka froze as the idea of a date with Haruto suddenly filled her mind. Ayaka remembered that Haruto had already invited Ayaka to visit the zoo together. Saki immediately realized that opportunity had already appeared before Ayaka. Saki jumped up in complete shock after hearing the truth. Saki was still amazed because Ayaka had already managed to reach that stage with Haruto. Ayaka shyly admitted that the outing was not really a date because Ryota would also be going to the zoo. Saki realized Hyoto would also join the trip and understood Haruto probably would not notice. It was meant to feel like a date. Saki asked whether the date had already been arranged, and Aiko admitted that had not happened yet because the details would be discussed later. Saki accepted that answer and decided that moment could become the perfect excuse. Saki smiled with confidence and offered Ayaka a secret romantic weapon as a gift from a best friend. Ayaka became curious after hearing about the mysterious romantic weapon. Saki happily revealed that the secret romantic weapon was a set of discounted cinema tickets. Saki believed Ayaka could use those tickets to invite Haruto on a date. Ayaka looked at the tickets with surprise after realizing they were discounted cinema tickets. Ayaka had not expected that answer at all. Saki explained that when Ayaka and Haruto talked about the zoo trip, Ayaka could casually invite Haruto to watch a movie first, and they could also discuss the zoo plan there. Saki believed that would become the perfect excuse, while Ayaka worried that inviting Haruto so directly felt like setting the bar too high, and Ayaka still lacked the courage for that step. Saki firmly reminded Ayaka that love was a race. Saki warned Ayaka that remaining at the starting line forever. Saki believed Ayaka had to keep running until reaching the finish, and those words slowly strengthened Ayaka's resolve. Ayaka accepted every word and quietly answered with agreement. Ayaka reached for the cinema tickets and decided to accept the chance that Saki had prepared for Haruto and Ayaka. Ayaka decided that Haruto would be invited on a date, and Saki answered with cheerful support by wishing Ayaka good luck. Saki shifted the conversation with an easy smile and wanted to hear more about the supermarket scene. Ayaka gathered the memories once again as the story continued from that moment. Ayako admitted that Haruto was still someone who remained difficult to understand. Ayako wondered why those feelings had grown toward Haruto despite knowing so little about him. Saki remained deep in thought as that possibility continued to linger in the conversation. Saki quietly considered the situation before wondering whether Ayaka loved Haruto because so little was known about him. Ayaka could only react with surprise at that unexpected thought. Saki explained that Ayaka had never truly gotten to know Haruto. Saki believed that once Ayaka learned more about Haruto, those feelings would only grow stronger because every new thing discovered about Haruto would make Ayaka like him even more. Saki smiled at Ayaka before explaining that love was often just like that. Ayaka accepted that the more Haruto became known, the more those feelings would continue to grow. Ayaka quietly reflected on Saki's words as the answer slowly settled in the heart. Ayaka continued walking beneath the open sky while the feelings for Haruto quietly filled every step. Ayaka placed a hand over the heart as a gentle smile appeared. Ayaka realized that falling in love with Hiro felt far more wonderful than ever imagined. Meanwhile, Haruto practiced at the dojo while a dull ache spread through the shoulders. Every movement felt heavier than usual. As the training continued, Kazu noticed Haruto moving with discomfort and wondered what was wrong. Kazu suspected that Haruto's shoulders had become stiff, while Haruto explained that 3 large fish had been handled and cooked during the previous day's job. Kazu shifted the conversation toward Haruto's part-time job and wondered whether Haruto worked at a fish shop or somewhere similar. Haruto denied that idea and explained that housekeeping services had become the part-time job. Shizuka quietly appeared behind Haruto and declared that Haruto would be hired for life. Shizuku wanted Haruto to keep handling every housekeeping task forever. Haruto suddenly realized that Shizuku had quietly approached without notice and reacted in surprise. Shizuku explained that anyone unable to sense that presence would never reach the highest level of karate. Haruto admitted that the shoulders had become a little stiff after the recent work. Shizuku immediately decided to help by offering a shoulder massage for Haruto. Shizuka confidently raised both hands and declared that those fingertips had mastered the art of massage. Shizuka claimed that once the massage began, Haruto would never want to live without Shizuka's presence again. While Haruto could only find that promise strangely frightening, Shizuka decided they should sit first before anything else. Shizuka let the words flow with repeated hesitation before settling on sitting down for now. Shizuka placed both hands on Haruto's shoulders and wondered how it felt. Shizuka wanted to know whether the massage already felt good. Shizuka quietly observed Haruto and wondered whether Haruto had started feeling unable to live without Shizuka's presence anymore. Haruto admitted it seemed that way. Haruto even believed life would no longer feel complete without Shizuku anymore. Shizuka quietly accepted Haruto's answer and remained silent while keeping that response in mind. Shizuka suddenly grabbed Haruto without warning. Shizuka quickly celebrated the successful move after catching Haruto. Shizuku immediately started tickling Haruto without stopping. Haruto tried to stop Shizuku and called Shizuka's name while laughing uncontrollably. Haruto begged Shizuku to wait, yet the endless tickling continued. Shizuka continued attacking with relentless tickles while repeating the playful assault again and again. Haruto laughed even harder while calling for Kazu's help. Kazu watched the scene and realized Haruto and Shizuka truly got along very well. Shizuka let out a satisfied breath. After finishing the attack, Shizuku asked whether Haruto had finally learned the power of Shizuka's hands. Haruto struggled to catch his breath and wondered what had just happened. Shizuku explained that tickling had been punishment for playing with a maiden's pure feelings. Hiro questioned what a maiden's pure feelings even meant and could only stare at Shizuku in confusion. Kazu wondered whether Shizuku had gone a little too far with the punishment. Haruto quickly agreed and questioned why Kazu had not stopped Shizuka sooner. Kazu corrected the conversation and explained the question was about Haruto's part-time job. Kazu wondered whether working for someone else's household was difficult and asked whether Haruto ever became tired of it. Haruto answered that exhaustion never bothered him because Haruto had chosen that job on his own. Hiro firmly insisted there was nothing to complain about. Hiro explained the family always treated Haruto with kindness. Haruto felt happy seeing them satisfied with the housekeeping service and enjoying every meal Haruto prepared. Hiro felt nothing but sincere gratitude. Ayaka quietly thought that everything became even more meaningful after hearing Haruto's honest feelings. She gently smiled while watching Haruto. He concluded that choosing the housekeeping part-time job had been the right decision. Hiro smiled with confidence because every experience had strengthened that belief. Kazu understood Haruto's feelings and felt glad that Haruto had finally found the part-time job Haruto truly wanted. Haruto happily agreed with Kazu's words. Haruto noticed Shizuku quietly approaching and wondered what had gotten into Shizuku. Shizuku raised both hands and innocently asked whether Haruto would allow another round of tickling. Haruto shouted and demanded to know why Shizuku was doing this while begging Shizuku to stop messing with Haruto. Shizuku suddenly chased Haruto across the dojo because Haruto had somehow annoyed Shizuku for no clear reason. Next day, Haruto happily confirmed the cleaning had gone well. Hiro felt satisfied with the progress and prepared to continue the next step. Haruto carefully scrubbed the bathroom until every surface became clean. The brush moved again and again while Haruto worked with steady dedication. Haruto reminded himself that the next step was to rinse everything thoroughly. Ayaka suddenly found Haruto in front of her and cried out in complete surprise. Haruto also reacted with shock as the unexpected encounter caught both of them completely off guard. Haruto politely apologized because Haruto had not realized Ayaka was there. Haruto immediately asked whether there was anything Haruto could help with. Ayaka hesitated for a moment before gathering enough courage to speak. Ayaka slowly admitted there was something important to discuss. Ayaka finally revealed that Ayaka had been wondering whether Haruto could help for a while. The request came carefully because Ayaka still felt uncertain. Ayaka nervously tried to ask whether Haruto had TYP. The words became stuck several times because Ayaka could not bring the question out smoothly. Ayaka finally asked whether Haruto is a type with an embarrassed smile. Haruto looked confused because the sudden question seemed completely unexpected. Haruto thought Ayaka was asking about Haruto's blood type and answered with that assumption. Ayaka quickly realized the misunderstanding and awkwardly explained that Haruto's cleaning results were remarkably clean and that Haruto worked with careful precision. Haruno explained that Haruno had typo blood. Haruno also admitted that Haruno's bedroom was actually a little messy, so Ayaka would not misunderstand Haruno. Ayaka quietly accepted that Haruno's blood type was typo. Ayaka reflected on the answer while trying to understand what it meant. Kazu understood Haruto's feelings and felt glad that Haruto had finally found the part-time job Haruto truly wanted. Haruto happily agreed with Kazu's words. Haruto noticed Shizuku quietly approaching and wondered what had gotten into Shizuku. Shizuku raised both hands and innocently asked whether Haruto would allow another round of tickling. Haruto shouted and demanded to know why Shizuku was doing this while begging Shizuku to stop messing with Haruto. Shizuku suddenly chased Haruto across the dojo because Haruto had somehow annoyed Shizuku for no clear reason. Next day, Haruto happily confirmed the cleaning had gone well. Hiro felt satisfied with the progress and prepared to continue the next step. Haruto carefully scrubbed the bathroom until every surface became clean. The brush moved again and again while Haruto worked with steady dedication. Haruto reminded himself that the next step was to rinse everything thoroughly. Ayaka suddenly found Haruto in front of her and cried out in complete surprise. Haruto also reacted with shock as the unexpected encounter caught both of them completely off guard. Haruto politely apologized because Haruto had not realized Ayaka was there. Haruto immediately asked whether there was anything Haruto could help with. Ayaka hesitated for a moment before gathering enough courage to speak. Ayaka slowly admitted there was something important to discuss. Ayaka finally revealed that Ayaka had been wondering whether Haruto could help for a while. The request came carefully because Ayaka still felt uncertain. Ayaka nervously tried to ask whether Haruto had TYP. The words became stuck several times because Ayaka could not bring the question out smoothly. Ayaka finally asked whether Haruto is a type with an embarrassed smile. Haruto looked confused because the sudden question seemed completely unexpected. Haruto thought Ayaka was asking about Haruto's blood type and answered with that assumption. Ayaka quickly realized the misunderstanding, and Hiro asked about Ayaka's own blood type and revealed that Ayaka had type B blood. Haruto finally understood the real reason behind the question and admitted the conversation had unfolded in a completely unexpected way. Haruto admitted that Haruto had always believed Ayaka had type AB blood. Haruto explained that Ayaka rarely mingled with other people and always seemed mysterious. Hiro believed Ayaka had always been like a flower beyond Haruto's reach. Ayaka quietly understood how Haruto had formed that impression. Haruto looked at Ayaka with a gentler expression while preparing an honest answer. Ayaka softly asked whether Haruto still thought of Ayaka that way. Haruto fell silent for a moment before admitting that he felt a little differently now. He explained that they had become much closer than before. He continued by admitting that he had realized Ayaka was simply a normal girl in the best possible sense. Ayaka immediately moved closer to Haruto with a bright smile. Ayaka happily asked whether he was truly serious after hearing Haruto's honest words. Haruto admitted it seemed that way. Haruto even believed life would no longer feel complete without Shizuku anymore. Shizuka quietly accepted Haruto's answer and remained silent while keeping that response in mind. Shizuka suddenly grabbed Haruto without warning. Shizuka quickly celebrated the successful move after catching Haruto. Shizuku immediately started tickling Haruto without stopping. Haruto tried to stop Shizuku and called Shizuka's name while laughing uncontrollably. Haruto begged Shizuku to wait, yet the endless tickling continued. Shizuka continued attacking with relentless tickles while repeating the playful assault again and again. Haruto laughed even harder while calling for Kazu's help. Kazu watched the scene and realized Haruto and Shizuka truly got along very well. Shizuka let out a satisfied breath. After finishing the attack, Shizuku asked whether Hyudo had finally learned the power of Shizuka's hands. Haruto struggled to catch his breath and wondered what had just happened. Shizuku explained that tickling had been punishment for playing with a maiden's pure feelings. Hiro questioned what a maiden's pure feelings even meant and could only stare at Shizuku in confusion. Kazu wondered whether Shizuku had gone a little too far with the punishment. Haruto quickly agreed and questioned why Kazu had not stopped Shizuka sooner. Kazu corrected the conversation and explained the question was about Haruto's part-time job. Kazu wondered whether working for someone else's household was difficult and asked whether Haruto ever became tired of it. Haruto answered that exhaustion never bothered him because Haruto had chosen that job on his own. Hiro firmly insisted there was nothing to complain about. Hiro explained the family always treated Haruto with kindness. Haruto felt happy seeing them satisfied with the housekeeping service and enjoying every meal Haruto prepared. Hiro felt nothing but sincere gratitude. Ayaka quietly thought that everything became even more meaningful after hearing Haruto's honest feelings. She gently smiled while watching Haruto. He concluded that choosing the housekeeping part-time job had been the right decision. Hiro smiled with confidence because every experience had strengthened that belief. Kazu understood Haruto's feelings and felt glad that Haruto had finally found the part-time job Haruto truly wanted. Haruto happily agreed with Kazu's words. Haruto noticed Shizuku quietly approaching and wondered what had gotten into Shizuku. Shizuku raised both hands and innocently asked whether Haruto would allow another round of tickling. Haruto shouted and demanded to know why Shizuku was doing this while begging Shizuku to stop messing with Haruto. Shizuku suddenly chased Haruto across the dojo because Haruto had somehow annoyed Shizuku for no clear reason. Next day, Haruto happily confirmed the cleaning had gone well. Hiro felt satisfied with the progress and prepared to continue the next step. Haruto carefully scrubbed the bathroom until every surface became clean. The brush moved again and again while Haruto worked with steady dedication. Haruto reminded himself that the next step was to rinse everything thoroughly. Ayaka suddenly found Haruto in front of her and cried out in complete surprise. Haruto also reacted with shock as the unexpected encounter caught both of them completely off guard. Haruto politely apologized because Haruto had not realized Ayaka was there. Haruto immediately asked whether there was anything Haruto could help with. Ayaka hesitated for a moment before gathering enough courage to speak. Ayaka slowly admitted there was something important to discuss. Ayaka finally revealed that Ayaka had been wondering whether Haruto could help for a while. The request came carefully because Ayaka still felt uncertain. Ayaka nervously tried to ask whether Haruto had TYP. The words became stuck several times because Ayaka could not bring the question out smoothly. Ayaka finally asked whether Hyudo is a type with an embarrassed smile. Haruto looked confused because the sudden question seemed completely unexpected. Haruto thought Ayaka was asking about Haruto's blood type and answered with that assumption. Ayaka quickly realized the misunderstanding and awkwardly explained that Haruto's cleaning results were remarkably clean and that Haruto worked with careful precision. Haruno explained that Haruno had type O blood. Haruno also admitted that Haruno's bedroom was actually a little messy so Ayaka would not misunderstand Haruno. Ayaka quietly accepted that Haruno's blood type was type O. Ayaka reflected on the answer while trying to understand what it meant. Hiro asked about Ayaka's own blood type and revealed that Ayaka had type B blood. Haruto finally understood the real reason behind the question and admitted the conversation had unfolded in a completely unexpected way. Haruto admitted that Haruto had always believed Ayaka had type AB blood. Haruto explained that Ayaka rarely mingled with other people and always seemed mysterious. Hiro believed Ayaka had always been like a flower beyond Haruto's reach. Ayaka quietly understood how Haruto had formed that impression. Haruto looked at Ayaka with a gentler expression while preparing an honest answer. Ayaka softly asked whether Haruto still thought of Ayaka that way. Haruto fell silent for a moment before admitting that he felt a little differently now. He explained that they had become much closer than before. He continued by admitting that he had realized Ayaka was simply a normal girl in the best possible sense. Ayaka immediately moved closer to Haruto with a bright smile. Ayaka happily asked whether he was truly serious after hearing Haruto's honest words. Ayaka remained close to him while waiting for his response. He suddenly realized Ayaka had come far too close. The unexpected distance left him unable to react right away. Ikutojo softly called out to Haruto while stepping into the room. Hiro looked toward the entrance with surprise. Iku apologized because Iku thought the visit might become a nuisance for both of them. Iku also apologized for the unexpected intrusion. Ayaka quickly stopped Iku because Ayaka did not want Iku to keep saying such strange things. Ayaka apologized because Ayaka knew Ijo always said strange things about him. Hiro assured Ayaka that nothing was wrong. He admitted feeling a little jealous because Ayaka had such a cheerful mother. Ayaka quietly accepted those words with a gentle smile. He smiled as Haruto admitted feeling grateful simply because Iku had become a mother figure in Haruto's life. Ayaka could only gaze at Haruto while trying to understand those unexpected feelings. Haruto continued by admitting that whenever she teased him and left him embarrassed, Ayaka looked incredibly adorable. Ayaka reacted with complete surprise because those unexpected words caught her completely off guard. Ayaka let out a small sound while trying to gather the courage to speak. Haruto's unexpected words left Ayaka unsure how to respond. She wondered if looking adorable while embarrassed was really true. She then called him a real menace because he had embarrassed her again. Haruto quickly tried to explain, but the words would not come out properly. He could only apologize after realizing the compliment had embarrassed her. He quickly changed the subject and brought up the zoo plan from the other day. Ayaka immediately agreed because that was exactly what she wanted to talk about. Ayaka hesitated before asking whether he was free tomorrow. Her looked surprised and repeated tomorrow because the unexpected invitation caught his off guard. Ayaka hesitated before finally speaking. She slowly suggested meeting tomorrow to talk about the zoo plan. Ayaka suggested meeting tomorrow because it would be bad if Ayaka's mother overheard their conversation. She wanted to meet somewhere else first so they could talk about the zoo plan. After gathering enough courage, Ayaka quietly wondered whether they could also watch a movie together. Ayaka explained that one of Ayaka's friends happened to receive movie tickets. Ayaka then used that chance to ask whether Haruto would like to watch a movie together. Ayaka quietly waited for Haruto's answer and wondered what Haruto thought about the invitation. Hiro repeated the words about watching a movie because the invitation came so suddenly. Ayaka quickly told Haruto that Haruto could forget the invitation for now. Haruto understood that the meeting was supposed to be about the zoo plan, but he also understood that the discounted movie tickets were a rare chance. He admitted that finding the right words was difficult. He hesitated because he searched for the right words to answer. He told her not to worry because he wanted to go to the cinema too. Ayaka looked at Haruto in surprise and quietly asked whether Haruto truly meant those words. Haruto smiled and confirmed the answer without hesitation. Ayaka smiled with bright happiness after hearing Haruto accept the invitation. Hiro shyly suggested deciding which movie they would watch. Aiko admitted that one movie had already caught Aiko's interest because of simple curiosity. Aiko showed the movie titled Natsuzora Takoi. Haruto realized that Aiko enjoyed romance movies, even though Haruto had never expected Aiko to like that genre. Haruto smiled and agreed that they should watch Natsura Takoi together because the movie had become popular lately. Ayaka quietly accepted the choice and held the phone while looking pleased with the decision. Ayaka asked whether Haruto was truly fine with that movie. He confirmed the choice and admitted that he looked forward to tomorrow. Ayaka happily agreed and admitted that she also looked forward to tomorrow. Ayaka softly called he and suggested exchanging contact information while holding the phone with quiet anticipation. Haruto realized that Ayaka was right. Ayaka asked Haruto to scan the contact code, and Haruto quickly agreed. Ayaka held the phone while Haruto scanned the contact code. Their contact information was exchanged, and the first messages welcomed each other with quiet happiness. He looked at the new message from Ayaka and smiled after reading the simple greeting that welcomed him with quiet warmth. He realized that talking about the zoo plan would be much easier through chat. Now he also realized that Ayaka was actually a clumsy girl. He left the doorway while holding the phone. He felt excitement filling the heart, although he wondered whether that feeling came from another reason. Next day, in quiet morning, Haruto stood before the mirror and got ready to leave the house as a new day quietly began. His grandmother noticed Haruto getting ready and wondered whether he was going somewhere today. He admitted that he was going to watch a movie. Grandmother smiled and found that unusual because he asked, "Is he going with Tomoya?" Haruto explained that the companion was someone from the same class. Grandmother suddenly wondered if the classmate could be a girl. Haruto hesitated for a moment before quietly admitting that it was true. The answer instantly brightened her face as she cheerfully declared that the outing sounded just like a date. The word date struck Haruto like a bolt from the blue. His mind went completely blank as shock spread across his face. Haruto quickly shook his head and firmly denied that it was a date. Her explained that the meeting was only to talk about something important while they were at the movie. Nothing more than that. His grandmother softly called Haruto's name once again. Hiro could only give a hesitant reply. Grandmother asked him to listen carefully. Going out alone with a girl was already a date in her eyes, no matter how Haruto tried to see it. His grandmother reminded Haruto that even if Ayaka did not see the outing as a date, Haruto should still treat it like one and escort her with everything he had. His grandmother continued by reminding Haruto that proper manners were what made a true gentleman. Every action should show respect and sincerity. He quietly repeated the word manners. The advice stayed in his mind as he began thinking about how the day should truly unfold. Haruto quietly accepted his grandmother's advice and answered with a simple yes. He let her know that he understood everything she had told him. Haruto promised that he would not be rude to Ayaka. He also admitted that he was heading out for a date, even though the words still felt unfamiliar. Grandmother smiled with satisfaction and wished Haruto good luck. As Haruto stepped outside, he quietly repeated his grandmother's advice about how a gentleman should conduct himself. He took a breath and prepared to do his best throughout the day. As Haruto walked through the busy station, he remembered his grandmother's advice. He believed Ayaka probably did not see their outing as a date because her way of thinking was likely different from his grandmother's. Even so, Haruto felt that escorting Ayaka as a gentleman was only natural. He quietly wondered if following that belief was really the right thing to do. Haruto remembered that he had also searched for a few cafes they could visit after the movie. The plan already felt complete in his mind. Even so, Haruto noticed how hot the weather was, even though it was not noon yet. He quietly looked around while waiting for the time to pass. Haruto checked the time and realized there were still 20 minutes before meeting Ayaka. The conversation on the screen reminded Haruto of every plan they had made together. The movie schedule matched perfectly. Ayaka had been happy because it was a movie she wanted to watch. They agreed to meet at 10 o'clock in the morning at the plaza in front of the station. Ayako admitted that excitement kept her from sleeping. Haruto found that completely normal because the same excitement stayed with him too. Haruto wondered if she had already arrived. A quiet thought crossed his mind as he looked around the station. Hiro looked across the busy plaza as the crowd continued moving around him. A figure suddenly caught his attention. Several people wondered if she was someone famous. Others admired how cute and beautiful she looked. Some guessed she might be a model or an idol. Haruto wondered if a photo shoot was happening. Someone even guessed she already had a boyfriend and wanted to walk over to meet her. Haruto walked through the crowd and politely excused himself before approaching her. He froze for a brief moment as the unexpected attention around Ayaka sank in. Haruto finally spotted Ayaka among the crowd. Ayaka stood quietly as she waited for him and looked just as beautiful as Haruto remembered. Haruto already knew that Ayaka was cute. Even so, he never expected her appearance to draw this much attention from everyone around her. Haruto looked at Ayaka once again and quietly admitted that she looked exactly as expected. Ayaka stood waiting for him with both hands held together as her gentle presence naturally drew his attention. Before Haruto could walk over, someone suddenly called out to him and caught his attention. Haruto turned toward the unexpected voice as surprise crossed his face. He immediately greeted Ayaka with a cheerful wave and called out her name. Ayaka turned toward him as soon as she heard her name, and her attention shifted away from the people around her. Ayaka greeted Haruto with a bright smile. Her cheerful greeting reached Haruto at once and made the distance between them feel much smaller. Haruto froze the instant Ayaka smiled at him and called his name. The sound of his heartbeat seemed to echo inside his chest as surprise completely took over his thoughts. Haruto apologized for making Ayaka wait. Ayaka quickly assured Haruto that everything was fine because she had only just arrived as well. He accepted those words with relief before suggesting that they should head out together. Ayaka happily agreed, and both of them started walking side by side through the busy street. Ayaka looked at him with a gentle smile and happily believed that today's movie was going to be fun. Hiro admitted that the movie sounded exciting and that he was looking forward to it as well. Haruto stayed silent for a brief moment as he gathered enough courage to say what had been on his mind. Ayaka quietly turned toward him while his gentle reply remained in her heart. Hiro finally told Ayaka that she looked very lovely today. The unexpected compliment caught Ayaka completely by surprise and left her speechless for a moment. Ayaka shyly searched for confirmation and wondered if Haruto truly meant those words. Haruto admitted that Ayaka looked more mature today, while her natural cuteness still remained. Every honest word came straight from his heart, and every compliment made Ayaka quietly accept the warmth behind his gaze. Haruto hesitated for a brief moment before admitting that Ayaka was truly very attractive. His own words embarrassed him because they came out more directly than expected, and even Haruto realized that he had stumbled over the confession. Ayaka softly thanked Haruto while gently biting her lip to hide the happiness growing inside her. Her quiet gratitude carried more meaning than any long reply. Haruto immediately wondered if the compliment had sounded a little creepy. The thought caught him off guard, and he quietly tried to recover from the awkward feeling before it grew any worse. Their footsteps continued side by side as a quiet pause settled between them. Ayaka softly murmured a hesitant reply. Ayaka quietly told Haruto that he looked really cool today as well. Haruto listened in silence while the unexpected compliment reached him more deeply than expected. Ayako admitted that Haruto always looked cool. Ayaka also felt that today Haruto looked more mature than usual. Haruto remained speechless as Ayaka's sincere praise settled in his heart. Haruto quietly thanked Ayaka for the heartfelt compliment. Ayaka softly admitted that those words were true, while shy happiness gently appeared across her face. Silence naturally settled between Haruto and Ayaka as they continued walking together. Haruto quietly wondered what had just happened. Haruto looked ahead and softly admitted that the movie was going to be fun. Ayaka happily agreed that the movie was definitely going to be fun. Their matching thoughts gently carried both of them forward. They arrived at the movie theater and Haruto looked around the lobby. Hiro walked toward the concession counter while preparing to buy snacks for both of them. He gently asked whether her usually bought popcorn and other snacks before watching a movie. Ayaka admitted that the choice depended on the day, but sharing popcorn together always felt nice. Haruto happily agreed that they could do the same. Today, Haruto quietly decided to take the lead and make sure everything went smoothly for Ayaka during their time together. Hiro told Ayaka that he would buy the snacks and asked her to wait for a while. Haruto added that she could also look around the shop if anything caught her interest. Ayaka quietly agreed and decided to wait. Haruto joined the long line at the concession stand and quickly realized that buying snacks would take quite a while. Even so, Haruto patiently stayed in line while keeping Ayaka in mind. Haruto suddenly paused after a thought crossed his mind. Hiro remembered that Ayaka always became exhausted every time she went out. Hiro knew that Ayaka had already grown used to it. Even so, Haruto could not stop thinking that standing alone for such a long time might still be difficult for her. A young man stopped Ayaka and apologized for approaching her without warning. He admitted that her beauty was simply too captivating to ignore and confessed that those feelings made him want to speak with her. Ayaka quietly listened while feeling uncertain about the unexpected conversation. A soft reply escaped from Ayaka as she tried to understand the sudden situation. The young man invited Ayaka to spend a little time talking with him. He assured Ayaka that there was a great place nearby where they could continue their conversation. The young man smiled and claimed that meeting Ayaka like this must have been fate. Haruto stepped in front of Ayaka and asked whether they needed something from her. He quietly stood beside Ayaka to protect her. Ayaka smiled softly and called Haruto by the name. Her gentle voice carried quiet gratitude for his support. The group noticed Haruto and wondered whether he was Ayaka's boyfriend. They apologized after realizing they were on a date and decided to leave them alone. Ayaka felt no anger and accepted it as fine. Haruto realized it was careless to leave Ayaka alone and quietly blamed himself for it. Haruto heard a cheerful greeting as one of the boys suggested that the five of them spend time together since they had already met here. Hiro stayed silent while his thoughts settled on what had just happened. He refused the invitation because he and Ayaka already had a movie to watch. The boys smiled after hearing that Haruto and Ayaka were going to watch a movie. One of them told him to stop everything because the situation already looked obvious. One of the boys asked whether everyone could watch the movie together. Haruto repeated that they already had their own plans and did not change his answer. The boys suddenly asked whether Haruto was really Ayaka's boyfriend. They wondered whether Haruto and Ayaka were actually more than just friends. He froze after hearing the unexpected question. He hesitated as the answer stayed on the tip of his tongue. Ayaka suddenly declared that Haruto was her boyfriend. Haruto froze in complete surprise after hearing those unexpected words. She quickly admitted that they were dating. She added that they were on a date and hoped the misunderstanding would finally end. She politely asked the group to leave them alone. Haruto firmly stood by Ayaka's side and supported her request. Haruto asked them to stop interrupting their date because he wanted to protect the time they were spending together. The boys refused to back down and invited Ayaka to come with them instead. He insisted that everything would be fine and even offered to treat her as if the date meant nothing. Ayaka fell silent as the boy suddenly reached out toward her. The unexpected movement caught her by surprise. Haruto immediately stopped the boy from reaching for Ayaka. Haruto declared that the boy had become a nuisance and refused to let anyone disturb their date. Ayaka looked at Haruto in silence. The boys finally gave up and decided to leave. One of them apologized for the trouble and wished Haruto and Ayaka clears throat. An enjoyable date, while another complained that he had only wanted to ask something. Hiro let out a long breath after the group walked away. Haruto asked whether AKA was all right and admitted that the boy had been too pushy. Ayaka answered that she was fine. Ayaka admitted that the situation had been a little scary and thanked Haruto because he had come back for her. Haruto immediately bowed his head and apologized to Ayaka. Ayaka quickly told Haruto that none of it was his fault. Haruto had only stepped in because she had been left alone. Ayaka also admitted that pretending to be his girlfriend must have been uncomfortable for him. Haruto looked surprised after hearing those words. Hiro admitted that he had not felt uncomfortable at all and confessed that he had actually been happy. Haruto told Ayaka that if she was all right with it, she could always use him to ward off other guys. Haruto assured Ayaka that he truly did not mind. Haruto also told Ayaka that if there was anything she wanted to do, she only had to say the word. Ayaka quietly thanked Haruto. Ayaka almost spoke her mind but stopped herself. Ayaka decided to keep those words inside and told Haruto to never mind. Haruto encouraged Ayaka to not hold back and assured her that everything was fine. Ayaka stayed silent for a moment before quietly gathering her courage. Ayaka softly asked Haruto to hold hands. Her quiet request carried every feeling that she could not bring herself to say aloud. Haruto froze after hearing Ayaka's request. Haruto could only stand there as his face turned bright red. Ayaka explained that if Haruto was all right with it, then holding hands might make them look more like a couple. Haruto quietly accepted Ayaka's request. Haruto agreed if Ayaka truly wanted it. Haruto gently reached out and asked Ayaka to hold hands with him. Ayaka quietly accepted. Ayaka believed that maybe holding hands with Haruto would make everything feel more natural. Hiro and Ayaka looked at each other in silence. Neither of them could bring themselves to make the first move. Haruto slowly reached out his hand. Ayaka quietly raised hers and moved closer to his. Haruto and Ayaka walked side by side. Their hands stayed close as both searched for the courage to touch. They carefully brushed their fingertips together. Neither of them pulled away. Hiro gently wrapped his hand around Ayaka's. Ayaka softly returned the grip. They firmly held each other's hands. Their hands stayed tightly joined without letting go. Their quiet smiles made the simple moment feel even more precious. They looked at each other while quietly holding hands. Neither of them could hide the happiness growing between them. Haruto noticed the popcorn stand and asked if Ayaka wanted to buy some. Ayaka quietly replied that it was all right because Ayaka did not want to let go of Haruto's hand. Haruto softly accepted Ayaka's answer. They stayed side by side with their hands still joined as the distance between them slowly grew closer. Haruto led Ayaka to the theater entrance and told her that this was the place. Hiro remained flustered, yet continued forward without letting go of Ayaka's hand. Haruto quietly realized that Ayaka's hands were small and incredibly soft. The gentle warmth resting in Haruto's hand made every step feel even more special. Haruto tried to calm himself. He reminded himself that holding hands was only part of pretending to be Ayaka's boyfriend and only meant to keep other guys away. He quietly looked at Ayaka and hoped that was true. He guided Ayaka to their seats and told Ayaka that they had arrived and that this was their seat. He quietly suggested that they should sit down. Ayaka answered with silent agreement while still standing beside Haruto. Ayaka tightened the hold on Haruto's hand before taking a step. He noticed the stronger grip and quietly froze in surprise. He looked at their joined hands and slowly realized what Ayaka's gentle grip meant. They sat beside each other in the theater. Even after taking their seats, their hands remained together. As neither of them let go, Haruto noticed that their hands were still joined after sitting down. Haruto became flustered while Ayaka quietly stayed beside Haruto without pulling away. The movie began as the screen lit up before them. Haruto noticed that the advertisements had started. She quietly agreed that they had. He realized that the movie should start soon. Ayaka admitted that excitement had already begun to grow. Haruto quietly looked ahead while thinking about Ayaka. The approaching movie slowly drew Haruto's attention. Ayaka quietly faced the screen and waited for the movie to begin. The lights dimmed as the screen came to life. Marcoa Pictures presented the movie and the sound echoed through the theater. The audience quietly watched the screen as the movie finally began. The movie opened with the title Under the Summer Sky. The story began with a quiet confession that love first bloomed beneath the summer sky. Ayaka quietly watched the movie while every scene held her full attention. The movie reached a heartfelt confession as the boy admitted that he had liked the girl for a very long time. The distance between the two characters slowly disappeared as they leaned closer to share a kiss. Ayaka suddenly tightened her grip around Haruto's hand. The gentle touch became firmer as her fingers quietly wrapped around his without letting go. Haruto suddenly felt Ayaka's stronger grip and surprise rushed across his face. Ayaka kept facing the movie while her hand stayed firmly linked with Haruto's. Haruto quietly felt his heart race as Ayaka continued holding his hand. Ayaka tightened her grip once again and her fingers remained firmly wrapped around Haruto's hand. Ayaka quietly watched the movie as Haruto struggled to steady his restless heart. Haruto could only remain silent as every thought disappeared beneath the warmth of Ayaka's hand. Ayaka suddenly felt a jolt run through her heart while her hand remained tightly linked with Haruto's. Ayaka lowered her head while her hand remained firmly joined with Haruto's. Haruto quietly turned his gaze toward Ayaka while the warmth of her hand continued to reach his heart. She could only let out a quiet sigh as the feelings overflowing inside her heart became harder to contain. She lowered her head as the emotions filling her heart quietly overwhelmed her. She rested her cheek against her hand while trying to compose herself. She covered her face with her hand as the feelings she had tried to hide finally became too overwhelming to suppress. Haruto walked out of Theater 5 while Ayaka quietly followed beside him. They left the screening room together while the other moviegoers slowly made their way outside. They found seats at a nearby cafe and settled across from each other. The silence between them felt comfortable as they reflected on the time they had just shared. Ayaka softly wondered whether the movie had been enjoyable for him. Haruto responded with quiet surprise as the unexpected question caught his attention and only a brief how escaped his lips. He admitted that the movie would probably become one he remembered for the rest of his life. A quiet well escaped first before the honest confession reached Ayaka and hoped it had been great. She admitted that it truly had been great, but confessed that the story had stopped making sense because attention had drifted away from it. Ayaka quietly admitted that the movie would never be forgotten either. Ayaka accepted that feeling with a quiet same. Then Haruto agreed while the shared understanding remained. Haruto brought up the date for the zoo. Ayaka remembered that the plan still needed to be decided. Hiro agreed right away. Hiro had been thinking about it for a while and suggested Datatsu no More Park. Haruto explained that Batsu no More Park was a little different from a regular zoo. Haruto added that the petting area and the playground with the water play area should keep Ryota from getting bored. Ayaka welcomed the idea with a cheerful yeah. Ayaka loved the plan and happily agreed to go. Ayaka added another idea. Ayaka suggested bringing packed lunches and eating together on the grass area. Haruto revealed that the same thought had already crossed his mind. Hiro proposed that Datatsu no More Park should be the final choice. Ayaka welcomed the decision with a happy and accepted Batsu no More Park as their destination. Haruto turned the conversation toward the date and asked whether next Wednesday would work. Ayaka shared that the day was free. Ayaka promised to prepare packed lunches that day and planned to come pick Haruto up at his house. Haruto accepted that Ayaka could not make the lunches because the next day was not a housekeeping day after all. Ayaka wanted to prepare them, yet the schedule made that impossible. Haruto gently accepted the situation because cooking did not bother him at all. Haruto looked at Ayaka after hearing her words while Ayaka gathered her thoughts before giving another answer. She quietly paused because another idea had come to mind. Ayaka brightened with a gentle smile as she suggested making the lunches together in the morning. Haruto listened to the proposal with quiet surprise as the new plan naturally brought them even closer. Haruto decided that making the lunches together in the morning sounded good. He happily agreed and decided they would do that. Ayaka smiled with quiet happiness as the plan was settled, and Haruto smiled as well. The conversation came to a gentle end as they remained seated across from each other while enjoying the peaceful atmosphere of the cafe. They walked out of the cafe together and left with their next date already planned. Haruto asked if they should head back then and invited Ayaka to leave together. Ayaka gathered her courage while keeping her feelings hidden as the invitation stayed in her heart. Ayaka answered with a quiet well while standing still before Haruto. Haruto turned his attention toward Ayaka while waiting for the words that followed. Haruto invited Ayaka to hold hands while offering his hand with a gentle smile. Haruto admitted that it would be a pain if Ayaka got hit again. He hoped Ayaka was truly okay with holding hands. Ayaka answered that she was completely okay with it. She accepted it without hesitation. As she stepped closer to him, he decided that he would walk Ayaka home. Ayaka gladly accepted and wanted him to do that. Their hands met once more, and the nameless distance between them quietly disappeared.